the work sessions that include motions and approvals. Work sessions are far less formal meeting where policy options and initiatives are discussed by the entire elected body. Due to the room acoustics, please speak up when talking so people can hear you and what you are saying. All comments and reports will be kept at 3 minutes maximum. And we have a trivia question after that. Doug, did you come up with one? We'll just say, where's Mr. Vernier? So,
he'll be here for the meeting at 7:30.
Other announcements, council officers are making some changes to the council work session meeting agendas to improve effectiveness and efficiencies. And we will follow the code of conduct resolution, which gets sent out with every agenda, including handouts at the meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Jeff's here to talk to us about LERTA?
Yes, that's the first one.
Okay, so we don't have any special presentations, so we're going to move on to our attorney, Jeff Stover, and he'll give us some information on the LERTA tax abatement draft ordinance.
Hello, everybody. So there is have you seen the draft of the ordinance? And, okay. So this is a draft of an ordinance. It's based on a rather convoluted statutory authorization because there's several different statutes that authorize this. One deals with residential property and the other one deals with non-residential property, and why the legislation was passed in that way, I have not the foggiest, but they're pretty much parallel statutes. They each authorize you to set up an area that is depressed, that needs revitalization, and it's up to you and your discretion as to where that is. And you can do a separate one for residential as opposed to commercial. And it also can authorize you to pick out specific properties anywhere within the borough for remediation as well. So the idea is if you have properties that are blighted or an area that's blighted either way, to be able to have some tools to attack that, to try to get money, and there's grant money available to have them repaired. And the acts authorize you to schedule a exemption schedule of how that happens, and it's over a certain period of time where it is exempted, or it can be the grant kicks in that fashion. So I don't know if you have any specific questions. The tough job for the council, if you want to go through with this, is to pick the areas where you're going to focus.
I guess this thing, we started looking at the downtown, the commercial district with large mixed-use buildings. Then we got into the waterfront district, and then the idea of residential was obviously not in the one act, so we tried to add that in. But I think we want to know if we're on the right track. We're ready to shop this to the other taxing bodies. So do you think we have enough to go on to reach out to the taxing bodies and say, this is our draft? You know, we're not, or should we wait till we have a public hearing and narrow it down to, based on comments, you know, this particular property or this area should be included, the council makes a decision, and then we go and get that information out to the other taxing bodies. I think I'm looking at what's the mechanics from this point forward to get this. We'd like to have this adopted ideally by April thereabouts. We have some big property owners that want to do renovations or new construction and would like to take advantage of this.
Well, I think the ordinance as it's drafted is certainly in sufficient condition to be shopped around to the taxing authorities, but there's one exception to that, is there's a blank there for the area.
Yes.
And I would imagine the taxing authorities are gonna wanna know that
Yeah.
before they would comment. So it seems to me, mechanically, going through the public hearing and picking that area would probably be beneficial to furthering the discussion. 'Cause some of the school district may care more if it's area A versus area B,
Yes.
so.
And I have a related question. In looking through the definitions, I got very confused, and this might be part of what you were talking
Yeah.
about. Is that in somebody, it talks about residential blighted properties and non-residential blighted properties and different requirements for them. And then there's another section that puts residential properties with everything else. And I think if you're reading through it that way, it says, well, my residential property can be covered, then suddenly, oh, no, it can't, so where do I go? And that's still confusing to me.
Okay, maybe we need to look at that a little more as we go through this, because it is confusing the way
Yes.
the statutes.
Basically,
written.
we took, I'll say, 5 or 6 LRTA-type ordinances and put them all in
Yeah.
a basket.
Yeah,
You know, sort
Yeah.
of, and try to say, you know, this is our best guess at what it should look like. So that's why it's kind of, it is a mix of different pieces of ordinances.
and when I went through it, I tried to iron some of that out, but,
Yeah,
We
it's
can
still
certainly-
there, it's like, huh? But then match that up
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So, you know, obviously your draft, you know, there wasn't any notes, you know, there's just the markings of red lines. If you want to kind of walk us through what you have in mind, if you want to do that method, or if you want to prepare an opinion letter, or however you want to do it, Mr. Stover.
I mean, I can go through the thumbnail sketch right now, and then we can follow up with something in writing.
Okay.
So, we added in the first page, the only thing I added was a reference to the second statute, and cleaned up what we were calling this. So I think throughout it, investment opportunity areas, I think is the terminology I went with. And that is defined as whatever the Borough Council says it is. What areas do you want to designate? On the second page, paragraph E is the deteriorated property definition. So any building or property that is in a state of disrepair and determined to be located in a designated area, one or the other. So if it's in a designated area or if it's in a state of disrepair, in either case, it can be determined to be a deteriorated property that would be subject to the ordinance. And then we have deteriorated property non-residential and deteriorated property residential. And so I tried to clean up that, again, borrowing from both of the two parallel statutes. And the one talks about just residential and the other basically says any other property. And then it goes on here, meaning any industrial, commercial, or other business property. That's what the statute authorizes.
Do you think it needs any further clarification for a mixed-use building?
The statute doesn't talk about mixed use,
Okay.
but I think if we're including both residential
Yeah.
and
Yes.
these commercial properties, I think we've covered the base
Okay.
as best we can.
Okay.
So this is part of the problem that I was having. Under E, it says, it might be as simple as bolding the word "or" wherever it occurs,
Yeah,
because right now it kind of mushes and it's kind of clear that it's not, that it's something in a designated area or a property that has clearly been designated as blighted. And I think if that "or" was highlighted, it would make it easier for someone to understand.
we can even add an A and a B.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's good suggestion. So in either case on F and G, on deteriorated property, it's It's what's in the investment opportunity area.
Or one that has specifically been pointed out?
Yes.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Dwelling unit is defined right out of the statute. I added the group of rooms because that's in the statutory definition. And then J, improvement means repair, construction, reconstruction, including alterations and additions. So any of those would be covered. And this is out of the statute, I think this is out of statute, minimum actual cost of improvement being $75,000. So it has to be a major.
We had to
job.
put in a number, we picked the previous council picked 75,000.
Yeah.
And I think, I just said that some other neighboring municipalities use that number.
Let me ask a question, I don't know what the answer to it is do we set a starting value or do we set a COLA value? So that over time that value would go up?
I have not seen that in any other ordinance. It was a flat amount, or a certain
Okay.
amount.
My
minimum
thought was that
amount.
if
I don't know
was
of
a-
anything
if it-
that would prevent that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it was a COLA one, then we
Yeah.
wouldn't have to go back and reopen the ordinance
That's
every time.
true, but,
That's my only thought there.
I think the most we're gonna revisit this is maybe every 5 years.
Okay.
Something like that is, you could adjust that number, 5 years from now.
Either that, or we just don't have the number in the ordinance and put the number in the fee schedule.
It's possible, I've seen a number, a minimum amount in the ordinances. Why don't you give it some thought and let us
Yeah.
know what you think?
And perhaps it's something as simple as saying every year, council will review it at your organizational meeting and by resolution can adjust it within some sort of framework.
Yeah.
We could do something like that.
Okay.
So in reading these, the way I'm reading it, so somebody who owns the property can do this, or a developer, or both. If it's a residential, if I want to redo my house, and I'm going to spend more than $75,000, I would apply for this, is that correct?
If you're within the designated area, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or your house has been
Designated.
said to be a nasty, dirty, messy up home.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Fires would also make that automatically happen.
Is there a gray area between repair and maintenance? One person's maintenance might be another person's repair.
Yeah, I thought that called it out in there, defining those, that it can't just be maintenance, it has to be a repair.
That's what I think you're asking for.
Yeah, well,
I don't know, I thought that was-
is replacing a roof maintenance or is it a repair?
That's maintenance.
It's maintenance, and I don't think you're gonna pay $75,000 for a roof unless you're doing a borough building.
I suspect if all you're doing is replacing shingles, that's maintenance.
Right.
If you're replacing rafters because they've rotted and if the roof is falling in, now you're probably into
Okay.
repair.
If you have a
It's-
bowed roof
Yeah,
and have to bring it back up, then that would be
Right.
a repair.
Okay.
it's gonna be a fact-by-fact determination, I fear. I don't know how you get around that.
Yeah.
You could put a sentence in there that council can decide, if it's a close call between a repair and a maintenance issue,
Yeah,
council can make the determining factor or decision whether the application is approved or not.
But it would still apply to the minimal cost of
Yes,
$75,000.
yes.
Right, so that kind of drives that a little bit.
and then the next page, section 2 is where we designate the area. And then section 3 goes into the allowable exemption from the tax bill and how that is defined. And the exemption schedule is section 3, which is over a 10-year period. The statute authorizes all different kinds of exemption schedules. They're somewhat different for residential versus commercial. The one you have here is good for both. So and that's the easiest to follow. It's,
That's what I looked around, like I said, maybe half a dozen borough, city, township ordinances, and
Yeah.
most of them had this schedule, so.
I like consistency.
So what's the confusion on how to name or how to pick the locations? I mean, wouldn't it be residential?
You could,
Downtown?
you could do it by zoning district. Some places did borough-wide. I told you,
Yeah.
Mannheim Borough did borough-wide. Some places do it by zoning district. Some places did it by per property. If you were in default or getting notices, then you qualified. So it's as little as a single property to zoning to the entire borough.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is, some places it talks about districts and sometimes it talks about opportunity zone. Under the federal law, the opportunity zone is limited to part of the commercial district and the waterfront district. We're not meaning that, so I'm not sure that using that term in this ordinance
This isn't federal.
is appropriate, because it's going to make things muddy.
Okay, let's clarify. The entire borough is designated as a federal opportunity zone.
Oh, okay.
And that's what Mannheim used to justify why they used the borough boundaries.
Oh, in that case.
So, yeah,
I
so
like
now
that.
we used to have a Keystone State Opportunity Zone,
That's
and
what I
that
figured.
was what you just described.
Yeah.
The downtown, mainly historic district and stuff like that.
Well, given the physical size of the borough, that it's so small.
Yes.
Instead of trying to chop it up, just
The whole
include the borough and that just,
You could start there,
Yeah.
you know, you have to think about, what do the other taxing bodies think? You know, do they think you're giving away more than you should, you know? That's where you may get some pushback. They may say, why are you including Parkview Heights or some of the, you know, so on district? You know, you're giving away too much, because you gotta have the school buy-in and the county buy-in. And they're having a little bit less income when things are reassessed.
but that's a short-term.
It is
Short-term
short-term,
reduction and a long-term
a long-term gain. But
gain.
I'm just saying, they might give you a little pushback. You can propose, you know, start at that level and see if you get pushback.
Well, the other thing is you're limiting the number of projects per year.
Yes,
So it's not like it's the whole district and everybody's gonna run out
Yeah.
and you're gonna lose all that tax revenue.
that's a good point.
But everybody would have access to do that.
Right.
Right.
Whether you get picked or not's a different thing.
Yeah, it'd be the top 5 applications in the door or whatever. I saw that in other ordinances. I thought it was a good idea, so we stuck it in ours.
So if that's what the definition is, I have no problem with it, but if it was the other one, then
Yeah.
it
Well, the one clarification on that is, do you want that limit, I think you have 5 in there right now, to apply to just what would be in the designated area, assuming it's less than the entire borough? And then if you find a really blighted property that you want to focus on, would that be in addition to that 5, or would that be one of the 5?
I think that's good advice, to try to give yourself some wiggle room in
Yeah.
case there isn't a property that needs attention.
Right. Something to think
So,
about.
so for example, we've got a cement building
Our doing
that,
sport.
that is in desperate need of
Yeah.
help. I don't think that initially someone's gonna come forward and do that, but, so we might get the 5,
Yeah.
and then we get forward by codes enforcement, say this has to be fixed or else. I think
Yeah.
that particular one could be brought to council,
Yes.
and we could make a decision to add beyond the minimum 5.
Yeah, we could do something like that.
I like that idea.
And the remainder of this ordinance is just a procedural, and it defines an application process.
Again, I borrowed that from neighboring municipalities. What I tried to figure out is how to verify, you know, money's spent, money's committed. There's a call for a neutral design professional to verify expenses. So, and then, of course, the assessment office does the reassessment. But it gives us some assurance that monies were spent and that the amounts were spent, and the person, property owner, is deserving of this incentive, you know. So that you know, has some safeguards built into it. I know we had talked some time ago. I thought it was mandatory for a public hearing. Are you still, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, would that be our next step, have a public hearing on what we think is maybe say the borough boundary, if council just
I
says
think
that's.
that would be,
Okay,
for something like this, would be a wise way to go.
okay, super,
We need to buy in that way.
okay, good.
So let me ask what the procedure would be. So Jeff, you will take this back, reword it based on our comments, send it back, and then in council this evening, we would say that once that comes back, then we would advertise for a public hearing.
Yes.
And then after that, once we get all of those blank spots filled in, then we send it to the municipalities, or do we do them simultaneously?
Well, I think after the public hearing, we'd want council to say, yes, this is the proposed district. Let's say it's borough-wide. Then we take that tentative draft ordinance and say, this is what we think council's gonna approve, and we shop it around, so everybody knows what the extent of it would be.
And then the actual final vote is after we've had input from the school board and the county,
I
correct?
believe so, yes.
Okay.
You know,
Makes sense.
really, our piece is a small incentive. The school district is the big piece. You really need buy-in from the school to make the numbers work or be really attractive.
Just out of curiosity, what happens if we got the county and us to agree, but not the school board? What happens then?
They actually had that in State College. I don't know the outcome. I don't know if they went on their own, but technically they could do their own and not have the school district be exempted.
I agree with that. So you would
Yes.
have an exemption for the county and
Yeah.
the borough, but the school taxes would not be part of the program.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So procedurally, we could do the public hearing at the next borough meeting on the 7th, correct?
Yeah, I believe
Bring it
so,
back.
as long as we get some advertisements.
Public hearing could happen on the 7th.
Yeah, we could do that as long as we advertise appropriately. And we could, yes, have a public hearing for input. It could be part of the regular meeting like we've done in other hearings and see what comments we get. And then council that, later that evening
Could vote on it,
could vote on that this is the
to
draft.
advertise.
Yeah,
But we would have to have his comments by when in order to do that?
well, I mean, we're talking here in general terms. We could include the comments in your materials that go out for that meeting. I can also send them out ahead of time when we get them. but-
I'm thinking about the public at this point.
Yes.
They need to know what is in this ordinance, and if we're going to make these changes that we're recommending, I would say that we need to make sure that those changes are in there, so we can put on our website in time to advertise the public hearing. And if it's 5 days before, I don't
Yeah.
know if that meets the state requirement or not.
Yes.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, what, we have on the agenda this evening, council may take action on the LERTA draft and may advance this. I think there's only a couple questions. I'm hearing that you may consider to go borough-wide with this as a proposed ordinance. If you make that tonight, I think we're just down to maybe a couple little changes here or there, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Clarifications, and we can get this draft, advertised on the website, advertise the public hearing at the next meeting, which is, you have 3 weeks.
3 weeks, so we're in good shape
Yeah.
that way.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
basically, I would expect some property owners, maybe some people are looking at bigger projects, to weigh in on it, but you'd have 3 weeks, roughly 3 weeks to get the word out.
Yeah, I was only thinking we had 2 weeks, and 2 weeks is cutting it really tight.
Yes,
That was
yes.
all I was thinking. I didn't realize it was 3 weeks.
Yes,
I think it's, pending the support letters that came in, we have some developers that are interested in this, and the sooner
Yes.
and quicker we can move it along, I think
Yes.
the better for Belfont.
Yeah. So there was one letter that wanted to make it retroactive to like,
I'll send you those letters, and you can, again, I would go to the public hearing with whatever comments. We'd probably resubmit that letter for council. There was some questions about, I think the person had already got a building permit like say last, or October of 2021, and wanted to, December, so they wanted to go retroactive a couple months. You'll have to weigh in on that. you know,
Yeah,
which-
actually, in your packet, you've got a copy of the packet.
Okay,
I think that
yes.
letter's in there,
All right.
Mr. Stover.
I'll look for that.
We've got a couple minutes.
You know, we have about 5 minutes. Any other questions, Mr. Stover? Any other points we need to make? Do we
I
want to
think
talk
we're-
about the designation?
Well, I'm hearing, it'll come up in the regular meeting, but I'm hearing that most people are comfortable with going borough-wide. As a starting point, you can always dial it back if the county and the school have some concerns. But, it's a good starting point. The number, the amount that you have to spend is a good starting point. Maybe that'll change after the hearing, but it's a good place to start.
Just out of curiosity, maybe what we as council members can do between now and then are raise questions about possible things that we think people might want to think, so that if they don't come up, we can ask the public, what do you think about the $75,000? What do you think about the district-wide? Some of those general kinds of questions, so we get more input from the public. And then, if they're not, and if they've only have a narrow view, and then that might click their brain and say, oh, well, this might work better, or whatever.
Okay.
I think with the public meeting, it's for the public, or it's not to us to ask them questions, it's up to them to bring us comments. And how we do that might be through the website or something like that, but to
Yeah.
direct that through a public session, I don't think that's proper. I think it's the residents coming in and giving their points of view on how I think it should
So maybe
happen.
that could be, those kinds of ideas could be put on the website, just so that it'll fit people's brains before they show up.
I have, what I'll do is I put like a little handout, 2-page handout together. I just go back and rephrase some of these questions, like about the district, because I said like we're to pick the district, I'll say proposed borough-wide district, just to
Everything like
clarify.
that Be proposed.
Yeah,
at this point.
yes.
Okay.
So like I had proposed the discount 10-year and so on, but that's proposed.
And maybe we could even throw in some pros and cons. We talk to other communities out there that have been doing this,
Yes.
see what kind of issues that they run into, and that kind of throws some food out there for the folks to look at.
But
Yeah.
again, looking, I think the ones that verify the amount of money being spent, they looked at what happens if the property burns, someone reassesses and asks for a lower assessment. They tried to really make sure that it was pretty solid as far as the ordinance, and people couldn't get around you, so to speak. So I think we tried to put enough in there to make this a solid ordinance, and it could always be amended if we find there's a problem somewhere. But yes, it's good to get comments and see what people will think about it.
Anything else for this item?
I have one question, and maybe we already covered this. When people apply, does the borough decide then if they're approved for, do we have a process for approving those?
Well, there's going to be an application
Okay.
process, and I have to kind of review the actual steps, but in essence, yes, we'll come to a determination that they are spending above the number, 75,000 if that's the number. And there's some verifications through a design professional saying it looks like this was spent. So, and then I think the assessment office weighs in and says this is the projected increase and this of the assessed value. So they would figure out what their savings is going to be, what the discount is. Say year
Okay,
one is
okay.
100%, and then year two is they're only going to pay 10% of that amount.
So Barbie, the exemption isn't for the entire value of the property. It's only for that value between what the current assessed value is and the new assessed value.
Yes.
Okay,
And
Yes.
so
okay.
that's where the assessment office comes in.
Yes,
Okay,
the assessment
okay.
may be even do a separate assessment, like for just the increase. The base stays the same. The property owner has to be up to date on back taxes and everything to qualify. So those are the kind of things we check for in the application. But the actual assessed numbers come from the county assessment office.
Okay.
Then I think they have to stay current or they.
Yes,
they
stay
lose the
current, or they lose it, yeah.
benefit.
There's a lot of moving parts to it, but I think, again, looking, the ordinances that had all these things in, I think we're better off. And it's not a silver bullet, it's not going to, like, there's a lot of communities that have this, it's just, if you have the economics where you have some interest, then it's a positive, but it's not gonna make or break, getting development. There has to be more to it happening in your community.
We have to run this.
Yep.
I guess the only other thing, Ralph, would be to try to find an application.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I called up north, as Doug says, and nobody could find it. so
I can track one down. They're out there. I spent time just looking at the draft ordinances, but yes, that'll be once we know what here in a couple of weeks, we'll start working on that part of things.
I think this ordinance has the things that go into what you're asking for through the application
Yes.
process. So that information that you're gonna be asking for is in there, just not the form of the
Yes,
application.
he wants a form, so we'll have to find one.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Stover. This
Yes,
is helpful.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate seeing you. Thank you very much.
Have a nice evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to council retreat. Ralph?
So let me give you a few comments. This came up last year. It's really more or less a planning session with focused on a couple ideas. We did not do it last year because of budget reasons. We also thought it was a good idea to get a facilitator. So we put it off, and we're wanting to see what your thoughts are about continuing with the idea of a council retreat. Some of the main reasons, we're looking at Bellefont's future, setting goals for the budget, looking at challenges and opportunities, looking at economic development strategies, those types of things. So what's your thoughts about, should we try to plan something soon? Should we put it off for a while? When we were doing this, we didn't expect to have a high turnover of council, so it might be advisable to wait a while to the new members get a feel for our budgeting concerns, our restraints, and the finance areas, and kind of see what the different services, the resources that are available, the people resource, the tax resource, equipment resource, and what's holding us back in some areas. Maybe once you have a better understanding just from being here and so on, being on council, you might be better positioned to be able to say, well, if we just did this in the future because so-and-so community did it, maybe it's an improvement, maybe it's a way to provide the service in a different manner. Those types of things usually help. But I just, I'm not sure this may be the best time to do some kind of retreat where we're asking you to look ahead 3 to 5 years and say, if we did this, worked on this, the borough would advance and be in a better position 3 to 5 years from now. You have to ask yourselves if you're ready for that kind of focused session where you're looking at 1 or 2 issues and all the time is trying to figure out how do we get over the hurdle or provide the service in a better way. So we wanted to put this on the agenda. We had planned or tentatively thought, early January, February, first quarter of this year. But when all that was going on, again, we did not expect the turnover that we had. So I can try to answer your questions
Well,
beyond
the other
that.
thing I would suggest at this time, because of the new folks, is the retreat doesn't have to be so much forward planning. I think it would be good to have our managers come up and talk about, the water and sewer, the public works, refuge, police, things like that, and get people kind of into what the borough does.
Okay.
And what kind of challenges they come across through their efforts downtown and around Belfont.
If you want more of an orientation now than a retreat where you're planning ahead, we can easily do that.
Right.
We would not need a facilitator, we would not have the big expense of the facilitator. So that is something we could certainly put together for you.
Couldn't we do that, I mean, to bring the new people up to speed, is to talk about that stamp report?
Yes.
Because that's where all of these ideas were coming from in the first place.
Yes.
That way you'll all have the background information that the other four of us have had and struggled through to get it done.
Well, in sort of getting to that point,
Yeah.
we could soon put the stamp as abbreviation or acronym for the strategic management plan. We could put that on, just that on a work session and try to
Right.
go over maybe just, we give you the whole thing, because it's like Joanne's saying, it's a big, huge document. But we could give you that, and we could focus on the recommendation part in the work session time and try to get you comfortable with that, and then go to maybe the orientation soon after, where you maybe hear from the different departments and services. And then maybe, see where we're at that point in time.
Yeah, so we could even break it up where, we have a manager come in and talk for half an hour, and then we talk about the stamp report, something on a workstation.
Yes.
And then move on to the next session at that point. That might be helpful as well to do it that way. So, and toward the end of the meeting, and council meeting, we'll be discussing that and looking for different ideas for the work session. So if you have anything, like, we could add these to that and look at where we could place them. We can
Yes.
work on that during the agenda, to make up time during the agenda and figure out when to put them in. And, use your suggestions to probably get some work sessions filled out over the next couple of months.
Yes.
And then anytime if we want to change something, we can prior to that meeting.
Yeah, I think we're going to try, like say at tonight's meeting, as you see on the agenda, we're going to try to look ahead to the next meeting, get your input on what you'd like to see on that work session agenda. And if there aren't any comments, Randy, your council president, will pick items, but we're looking for input from council to put that agenda together.
Any other questions on council retreat?
Could I hear from the new people what they're thinking about this? Because so far, they haven't spoken.
Probably sound like, holy crap.
Well, I don't know what the retreat involves, but it sounds pretty intense. But I like the idea of the orientation where each, I don't know, program or employees, I don't know. See, I'm so new, I don't know what they're called.
No, that's that. I got the idea. So.
Yeah, I really like that idea.
Okay.
I agree. I think that's a really good start
All right.
for all of us.
Good.
And I guess the question back to those of you that have served, what would you like to see on there that you would like us to know or to start with?
Yeah.
I think the borough orientation will be helpful for everybody, because you don't remember everything that has happened. I mean, I've been on here for 8 years, and you forget. Things change.
Yes, that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm with them. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, and get those other managers to tell us what they do and bring it all to us so we're not missing out on parts.
And then maybe in the spring, you can do the tours.
Yeah. Yes.
So you can get an eye overview during the winter, when you don't want to climb. Although for the sewage treatment plant, that might be the best time.
True.
It is really a best time.
Okay, that's our 10 minutes on council retreat.
Yes.
And we're going to go into diamond improvements, and I see we have our sign back there in the
Yes.
corner. I don't know if you folks got a chance to take a look at that, but if you want to stroll around there, go right ahead, make yourself at home, and take a look at it.
So you know, in preparing for this work session, of course, I didn't want to spend a lot of time going backwards, you know, because there's nothing we can do.
You want to do Anna?
Thank you. What couple of notes I made here is, you know, we had as you all know, I'm sure you all are aware, November 4th, November 6th, we had a public input meetings here in the room. And we compiled comments, we took comments through November, but the majority had come in through the public meetings, and, you know, a handful or a bunch of emails and letters. The majority had come in right around those meeting dates. We got into the holidays, Borough Council was focused on the budget. You know, so we put this on the burner on purpose because with only 2 meetings a month, we had to focus on the borough budget for 2022. So we did that. So a couple comments I have here is we never really gave council all the comments. We never really compiled all the comments received. You know, and a couple of things. You know, the majority, obviously, I'm just summarizing a couple points here. The majority of the comments were against major reconstruction of the diamond. The majority of the comments were in favor of smaller changes, such as improved crosswalks, whether that's the paving material, the imprint, coloring, some even said raised, some improvement to crosswalks, which included lighting, signage, lighted signage, speed enforcement, better police presence, take out the planting area or lower the planting area that's in the diamond area, put the parking back in, which, you know, as you saw, council tried to do what they could in December to accommodate that. I mentioned adding speed bumps, but that's really raising the crosswalks. So that was the majority of the comments that were, I'll say, small changes. A couple things, the lower crosswalk by the YMCA, yes, thank you, was moved, you know, was up closer to, thank you, was GC Murphy or the YMCA Annex. It was up closer to that crossing. Of course, we moved it down. It was recommended to do that to improve visibility as people make the turn from Allegheny heading south and then turning west onto High Street. In that process, of course, we moved the crosswalk. We also got permission to imprint the crosswalks. Dawn has a sample of what we're talking about, and also the sample where the same imprinting is done on Potter Street, adjacent to the train station in our west parking lot, municipal parking lot. Now that is a raised crosswalk, but you can see the imprinting and the coloring that's potential. It could be done on the diamond. So yes, yes, thank you. So what I'm getting at, the reason that imprinting was approved when we did the crosswalk relocation permitting work through PennDOT. You know, if we're talking about doing that and we're talking about lighting improvements, you know, we're done with permits. If we're talking about raising the crosswalks, sort of like we did on Potter Street, then we're back to getting PennDOT approval, you know, different changes. We may need to get PennDOT approval. But just so we're all on the same page, you know, we could redo something with the crosswalks. You could change the lighting. Now, as far as signage that's been brought up, lighted crosswalks, we would have to go back to PennDOT. That's my understanding. I know a couple of members here have brought that up. My understanding is it's allowable, You just have to go and see if, well, it is allowed by PennDOT on a case-by-case basis. We'd have to apply and see if they would allow it here on the diamond. Is that,
So to be clear, it's not putting new traffic lights in. It's putting in push buttons for pedestrians to push to cross the street. And they would have flashing lights to go along with that. That's what PennDOT has to approve.
Okay.
Mm.
We wouldn't do that at each crosswalk, would we? Or would we?
Well, probably this one, and this one.
I'd say your main one.
Okay.
You know, then maybe start on the diamond, and then, you know, ideally, a lot of these same concepts, I'd say start on the diamond, work your way out, you know, further Allegheny,
Sure.
and then down high and so on. Funding, you know, funding's always an issue. We never had construction money. There was never, and we never even got that far. We used highway aid funds, which is it's a part of the gas tax money that the borough receives. And we get an allotment based on road miles that we have that qualify in the borough. And we get this allotment, we use it for paving, we use it for buying road salt and so on.
We should say that that funding is earmarked for certain projects only. Like
Yes.
you just mentioned, you
Yes.
just can't use it for anything.
No, yes, and we're audited by the states, kept in a separate fund. It's called highway aid or liquid fuels funds. And yes, they're very restricted on what you can use it for, but planning, improvements to roads, you know, that is an allowable expense. What I'm getting at, that's how we have paid for expenses to date. Going forward, if you're talking small changes, lighting, imprinting, those are affordable, we believe. If you're talking something major, you know, we've got to find the funding. You know, we got to see what funding is out there through the state and so on before we go any further. So maybe I wanted to quickly give you an update, and really the emphasis is where are we going from here. It's not worth talking about how we got here. It's just where we go from here.
So with that, I mean, this is basically all about public safety, not about pretty crosswalks or things like that.
No, you're good.
And I was under the impression that they were gonna be raised at one point, and I was corrected, and that's fine. I think looking at that material, there's enough of a deviation throughout that, and when you drive over it, you're gonna know, what was that? And that will call your attention and probably slow you down, and that's the purpose, is to slow you down as you're driving through town. And you kind of pay attention to the next one, you know, you'll see it now, it'll stick out a little bit more with the red brick and the pressed look to it, I think. And, you know, what's that last, 10 years? And at that point, you know, you go through that 10 years, if that's all we do is putting those crosswalks in, and 10 years from then, if the lighting and stuff wants to be put in, maybe you could do it when you're replacing it, but not, maybe we can't do it this time.
Lighting.
Stuff like that, just looking at it.
With lighting, you know, you could go a couple different routes, change the bulb brightness,
I was talking
or,
about the sign.
oh, okay, yeah, the signage is a bigger deal.
Yeah.
But the lighting in the historic lights, or historic looking lights, right now, we're trying to get brighter bulbs. And over the course of time, as you've seen, you know, it's gone from a pretty dim light to a little bit brighter. And what's happening on the market, the vendors are improving what they're doing, and gives us finding a bulb that fits those lights that's brighter, and that, you know, we're looking at right now, trying to get a couple sample better, brighter bulbs. And as soon as we get them, we'll say they're in this such and such light, and you can go take a look at them. That's the easiest without adding fixtures. You know, the poles itself, sometimes you can add, instead of one light on top of the pole, you can put 2 lights or 3 lights. That is another level, you know, that could be done later. But the easiest and simplest is to try to increase the brightness of the bulb that's there, are going to be there. So, I guess without trying to figure out too much, bulb brightness would probably help. And we thought, even early on, we thought the imprinted walkway, similar to we did on Potter Street, would be more visible, look nice in the historic district, and hopefully slow people down a little bit.
Question. If memory serves, at some point there was discussion about putting this imprinted material also at the crosswalks at Allegheny and Pike and Allegheny and Cherry. And to me, that would be like an early warning
Yeah,
notification that drivers would slow down before they get to the diamond.
yeah.
I was gonna go the same way. If you said move from the diamond out,
Yes.
that might, but I think for safety purposes, maybe getting them started at those lanes, they're not alleyways. And because that'll get people's attention, so they would slow down. Then put them there in the diamond, and then maybe consider the rest of the commercial district and put them there as well.
Yeah, you could do it, that way. yeah.
'Cause I had brought that thought up about moving them out to those streets that you just mentioned
Yeah.
during some of our meetings. And again, for that purpose, what you suggested. So I didn't bring it up tonight because I just figured we were talking about the simple part there.
But this is a great place to start.
It is,
And then
yeah.
build on it. But I think if we have them a little bit further out on Allegheny Street, that's kind of an early warning.
Yeah, I mean, if
Maybe
we're not
an
gonna do, if
expectation
we're not
as to
gonna do
what's
the up,
coming.
if we're not gonna do the upside and the downside, then we could use that money to do those two other ones that you were talking about.
You're talking about upside and downside, which ones are you
High
talking about?
Street,
The two ones on each side of the high?
yeah.
Okay. I would have said both of them were higher, but okay.
Our permit, the current permit that's active would involve those alone. If we did go
Yeah.
for the other two, we'd have to go back and do a little bit of work on the permit as well.
That is a factor. Now, I would think that it wouldn't be too intensive to just imprint the crosswalks.
No,
But we would have to get.
we'd have to
Yeah.
get the permit adjusted.
Yes.
But that could be, that doesn't have to be done at the same time as the
Mhm.
diamond, but it could be, if we
Well,
have to wait on the permit approval, we could still get it in and when it
Yeah.
comes.
When they mobilize, they'll probably be here to do it all. It'd be cheaper for them to come and do it all at once than it would be to do it and come back and do the other
So,
two.
Don, are you saying that it might be more efficacious to do the entire commercial district at one time? Or
No.
just what we're talking about here?
No, I would focus on this, and
Plus
then
those
depending
two.
on how this turns out, then if we want to expand, like when we do the renovation work on East Bishop and South Spring, we incorporate it in, and we can just do it,
Okay.
as we, as we get the funding to do these types of projects. I agree with that, but I think it would be great to put it there, and I don't have any objection to it. I'm just pointing out the fact that it would just require little,
Yes.
Would it just be an amendment or an adjustment to the existing permit, or would you have to start all over?
I don't know the answer. I have to go back to Panoni and ask them if it would require a new permit or just an amendment. We can ask.
P.S.
P.S. we want to do this.
I feel the lighting is essential too. You were saying if we could get brighter bulbs, I know
Yeah.
as we look around it, it's pretty dim.
Yes.
And I understand with the types of lights that we have. I did notice the one crosswalk by the Belfant walk seems to be brighter. I don't know if that's a different bulb or if they did something on their storefront, but that one seems to be pretty lit up.
Okay.
If we could get some kind of bulb that was brighter, I think it'd be very beneficial.
Okay.
So we're at less than a minute for the diamond improvements, so we can just take a quick break. So is there anything else we want to bring up for the diamond?
I think what we're going to do, we're going to revisit the vendor that gave us a quote 6 months ago and try to get some new numbers, and then maybe talk with Lori about our budget to see what is earmarked for streets, paving, and so on. And then we kind of know what our budget is for this year, right?
Mhm.
Does that sound good?
Mhm.
So we'll come back with maybe an updated estimate, what we're talking about to do the diamonds. I think we did get an estimate on doing the diamond some time ago.
Yeah, we did.
So 7:25, so we will adjourn the work session.
That's just, it's all
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. We'll welcome everyone to the Bellefonte Borough Council meeting. We'll do our best to start the council meetings on time and end on time. Remember, we are here to do Bellefonte's business, and that's what we're going to conduct tonight. Due to the room acoustics, please speak up when talking so that people can hear what you're saying, and all comments and reports should be kept to 3 minutes. At this time, I have to bring up my... I hate it when this happens.
Ready to pledge?
Yeah. Oh, come on. Sorry about this.
No
That's
problem.
on me.
No problem.
Well, in the meantime, I have a trivia question
Go ahead.
for the council.
No, no.
We all know there's 67 counties in the state of Pennsylvania. What's the smallest county in the state of Pennsylvania?
Smallest by population or or
Physical
size?
size.
Smallest.
I beg your pardon?
I'm just making sure I got the question right.
5, 4, 3.
Tioga.
Wait, it's,
Take a guess.
it's,
I hope I'm right.
it's also the
I've got 5
least-
seconds.
It's also the least
4,
popular.
3, 2,
McKean.
Montour.
Okay, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. It's January Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month, so let's remember those firefighters who may have been impacted by cancer and their families.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Bernier,
Present.
Mr. Brackville,
Here.
Ms. Cleaton. Here. Ms. Dan.
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Present.
Ms. McKean,
Here.
Ms. Purnell,
Here.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Here.
Ms. Tosti Vasey,
I'm here.
and Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Additions to council meeting agenda.
I have one, and it's to make an appointment of a stormwater engineering services officer. It was left off the last agenda, and he said he'd be at this meeting. We didn't see it here listed today.
Okay, what's that going to be under? Is that new business?
That would be new
We get new
business.
business. Stormwater engineer.
Any other? Seeing none, do we need to vote on these?
Where's where to, majority vote says you're allowed to add something to the agenda.
So I guess I make a motion to add that then?
Okay, we have a motion to add stormwater engineer appointment under new business. Any discussion?
We need a second.
Any second?
I will second that, Cleaton.
You have Clayton, second. Okay, adding stormwater engineer to the appointment under new business. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So that'll be the first item we do under new business. Okay, public comment regarding items on this agenda. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to communications.
First one is the annual duck race fundraiser in Talleyrand Park on Saturday, April 30th, from 9 to 2. Looking for permission to hold that event.
Okay, I'll call for a motion to approve the Belfont Little League's request to hold a duck race fundraiser in Talleyrand Park using the spring-fed side of the waterway on April 30th, 2022, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. This approval includes using safety guidelines used in 2021 as stated in the request and following CDC guidelines in place at the time of the event. Do I have that motion?
I'll make that motion as you presented it.
Stosty Vasey made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by
Dan.
Ms. Dan. Discussion.
Will the bridge be finished by then? That connects the sculpture garden to the rest of Talleyrand?
We couldn't guarantee that, but, you know, we certainly would try.
Would that affect this event?
We could
No.
shouldn't, but we could let them know that it's under construction.
Good point, because that never
Yes.
came to my mind with a bridge down there. So. Anything else? Any other discussions? Okay, since you're ready to vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Next item is a request for a road closure being Allegheny Street from Howard to Burroughs for Saturday, May 7th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for Center County Library and Historic Museum's NovelCon event.
I'll call for a motion to approve the Center County Library's request to hold the Novel Con event, which includes road closure of North Allegheny Street between Howard Street intersection and Burroughs Street. Conditional to PennDOT approval of the street closure request and communications with the Belfont Police, residents, and businesses within the block of the street closure. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Dan, motion.
I'll second it, Cleve.
Deb Clayton. Discussion?
Yeah, since this interrupts the flow of traffic through town and it is only a half a block, might it be better to close West Howard between North Allegheny and Locust Lane? This also is adjacent to the library, but is on a less traveled road.
Block the fire company?
No, not that part, but I'm talking about West Howard Street, which is near our parking lot,
Okay.
and Locust Lane, because that's right next to the other library, and it wouldn't block the main traffic through town.
I mean, you bring up a good point. I don't know why they requested Allegheny, although they have had the event on Allegheny.
Yeah, but considering it's only a half a block and we would have to do a lot of rerouting of
We
traffic,
do.
it would make much more sense to me to put it on Howard rather than Allegheny.
I
And it's
don't
still
know.
next to their building, so
Yeah,
it's not,
I don't know the
Well, then
reasoning.
what I'd do is I would call for somebody to table this until the next meeting and get the information that we need.
I'll make that motion to table.
So we have a motion to table by Mr. Vacy. To the second.
Could they give them the option of east or west, Howard?
We can talk to
Well-
them, but let's get this,
Go
I
ahead.
need a second
Yeah.
first.
Bernier, I'll second that.
Thank you.
There's advantages to West Howard. It's a local
Okay.
street. East Howard is a state road. Allegheny's a state road.
Right.
It is more complicated.
And
Okay.
East Howard has the fire company
Yeah.
right there. West Howard, this would.
This is
That's
out of
fine,
order
we're
for a
not-
table.
That's fine,
This
you've
is out-
convinced me. Good.
All those in favor to table this item until the next meeting of the February 7th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Okay, so there's the request to hold a centered outdoors event in Talleyrand Park, June 19th and 22nd, which is a Sunday and a Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. The letter indicates it would not interfere with other events, so it's there for your consideration.
I'll call for a motion to approve the Clearwater Conservancy request to host outdoor guided tours on Sunday, June 19th and Wednesday, June 22nd, between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. This approval includes following CDC guidelines in place at the time of the events. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve
Mr.
that,
Bernier makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Mr. Johnson, second. Discussion?
Yeah, I don't know how much it affects the motion. They said that this will bring about 50 to 75 visitors each day. It is being sponsored by a non-Belfont-based nonprofit, who nevertheless provides us with many in-kind services every year. And we have a policy of, in general, if it's a Belfont-based nonprofit, we waive the fees for them. Because this one isn't, could we waive their fees in lieu of all the in-kind services they provide for us? In other words, substitute their assistance with the plantings, the riparian, barrier information, and other consultations for the park fees that would be taken in lieu of having that. So basically, they're providing us the services instead of money. And if so, if that's okay, then I would like to amend the motion to add that fee waiver based on an in-kind donation.
Any thoughts to that? Is there a second?
I'll second.
They've done this before, and I don't
Yeah.
remember how that was handled, fee waived.
My recollection, I'm not sure how we did it, but I think the fee was waived.
Yeah, it's just that we're trying to be consistent. And so for everybody else knowing that in this particular case, this particular nonprofit provides us the services that are valued actually more than what the fees would have been. So it's just a matter of saying that they're giving us the services rather than the money.
And certainly if we haven't charged them in the past, if you're thinking we waived them in the past, it
think
would
we
make
did.
sense to make sure we
Yeah.
put that in, that we waived them this time too.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
will that require an amendment?
I think
Joanne also-
I made a motion.
Yeah, but then we didn't get a second.
Deb,
Yeah,
please.
yeah.
Deb, I'm sorry, I forgot. Okay, so the amendment is to waive the fees for the Clearwater Conservancy Group.
Yes.
Discussion on that. Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes. Now we're back to the main menu. Yeah, main motion. Any more discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the main motion with the fee waivers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Excellent. Now, there's two letters here, similar in nature. They're in favor of the LRTA ordinance or with some comments related to the draft. As you know, we talked about it in the work session. We have it later on in the agenda. So I will leave it go for now. And the next item is a letter from the Belfont Borough Authority to Council, Borough Council. And the note here is council may request a meeting with the authority representatives to discuss their letter. I know, obviously, attending the authority meetings, that's what they're interested in, is a meeting to discuss issues.
Okay, I'll call for a motion to approve a meeting between the Belfont Borough and representatives of the Borough Authority. That could be representatives of the Belfont Borough as well.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Johnson, second.
I'll second it.
Mr.
Dan?
Dan, second. Discussion on the motion.
Okay. Just a question. Do you want Paul Takak and Bill Sharp at this meeting, or just members of the council and the authority? Since they're the
This
two
has to
individuals.
do with council and the authority. It has nothing to do with,
But what I'm asking is, since they're the people who are spearheading the One Water Plan, do you want them at the meeting or not? If so, I can invite
this
them.
item has nothing to do with the One Water Plan. This has to do with Belfont Borough and the authority.
But the letter is regarding the One
Not
Water
that
Plan.
letter, there's two letters.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Totally misunderstood. Forget my comment.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll set up the committee. And Ralph, you can set up the meeting.
Sure. Okay, the next item is just an informational newsletter from Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection in regard to energy-related issues. It's there for your review. I think that's all we have under written communications this evening.
Yep. So we'll move into the consent agenda. At this point, I'd like to remove the newsletters, both newsletters.
You mean the minutes?
So the minutes,
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I agree.
there's some work to do on those. I gotta
Yes.
dig down here too. Okay, and
So I'll move
Go ahead.
I'll move to accept the rest of the consent agenda minus the minutes, and we'll do those separately.
is there a second?
I'll second. Sedgwick.
The motion's been made to approve what's left of the consent agenda other than the minutes from the last two meetings. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, good, motion carried. So the changes I have are, the first meeting was December 20th, 2021. On page 2 at the top, it says Mr. Johnson, not Mr. Brackville, moved to reinstate parking on the Diamond. So my name was in the wrong spot. Same thing on page 2, amendment by Mr. Trustee Vacy to limit 2 spaces for compact vehicles only. That amendment wasn't added into that.
Are you still on the 20th or the 21st?
I'm sorry, I jumped to the 22nd, to
You're
22.
the third?
Yeah. That would be the 22, January 2022.
Okay.
Page 2. So there was an amendment made, but it wasn't included on the minutes. And that amendment was to limit the 2 spaces for compact vehicles made by Ms. Trustee Vacy.
Are you talking about the bottom of page 3?
On the top of page 2. January 3rd minute?
That was the first one, that was in 21.
Would it be easy if we did any other changes to the December 20th one first, pass those, and then go to the January 3rd one?
Yes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just looking at my list, not yours.
Because I have I have 3 additional ones on December
On
20th.
December 20th, what was your first?
20th?
Yeah.
Okay.
20th.
Hold on here, John, one second.
Okay.
I want to get this first one.
Mr. Johnson reinstated 2 parking stalls for compact vehicles only with back-in parking.
Mr. Johnson moved.
I
Okay.
had my name on that one.
All right. All right.
I forgot where I got lost at. So
Joanne.
go ahead.
Okay. Under December 20th, under additions to the agenda on the first page, at the end of it said the president agreed and removed this item from the agenda. There wasn't a vote.
Could you,
have
in
the-
additions to the agenda, it shows Halderman
Oh,
wished to
to remove the ABC information from the new business. He
Yeah.
read aloud appointments protocol.
Yes.
There needs to be a sentence added that says, the president agreed and removed this item from the agenda.
Okay.
On the second page, in the 3rd paragraph, there's a whole sentence about Sally Hauser talking about Victorian Christmas.
Yes.
Then it should be added. She also announced that she will be stepping down as the organizer for Victorian Christmas starting next year. The council thanked her for her years of service with this program.
Any other changes?
Yes, one more. Under written communications, it says no council action was taken. And I added a sentence saying, correspondence received included a letter from BHCA on the winter market. I'm going slow because this is a long sentence. A thank you letter from a visitor, Jim Baker, regarding the EV charging stations, comma, letters of support to reappoint Joe Beagle to the Water Authority, comma, and a copy of the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau Annual Report.
Okay, well, those items, remember, were part of the packet. I don't know if it had to be on the meetings because we didn't discuss any of them. at that
Well,
point.
we went through them and talked about them, so I think in general what we do is just let the public know these were the items that were presented. It's not going into any detail about
We can
them,
make the changes, that's no problem.
so.
Okay.
Any other changes? We don't need a motion on that.
So we need a motion to accept those
With
minutes as
those
amended.
changes.
With those
Are there
changes.
any other changes? And this is for 2021.
December 20th, 2021.
Yep. Any other changes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, you want to reread it for us?
You're not gonna make me do that because I'm gonna have to go back and.
We have noted the changes. And I think when we see these again, having that in writing would be helpful instead of waiting till the meeting. And we speed things up a little bit. So,
They're in red.
okay, so we have a change to correspondence received included a letter from BHCA on Winter Market, a thank you letter from visitor Jim Baker for the EV charging stations, letter of support to Greenpoint Joe Biggle, the Water Authority, Maccabi Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. Sally Hauser also announced that she would be stepping down as the organizer for Victorian Christmas starting next year. Council thanked her for her service for this program. And the other is that under additions to agenda, the president, we added the president agreed and removed this item from the agenda. Without any other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll do 2022.
Thank you.
I had two changes on mine, actually three. The bottom page of page 2 is an amendment by Ms. Toasty Basie to limit the 2 parking spaces for compact vehicles only. And what I read here was Ms. Toasty Basie moved to eliminate the 2 parking spaces to compact cars, so I just removed the word eliminate.
Yeah.
And the next one is Mr. Johnson.
That was on the bottom of page 3 though, wasn't it, under old business? That's what I was asking before.
Well, I have it right on the bottom of page 2 on my,
Okay. I changed that to restrict the 2 parking spaces.
to restrict.
Uh-huh. And then in that same paragraph, she said motion carried, but she didn't add the final motion, which is the amended motion then carried with 1 nay.
That's the part, yeah, that's the part I wanted in there.
Tossed it, and I was the one that had the 1 nay. I have these in red too, so I'll give them to you, Don.
Okay, thanks. The other one I have is on page 3. Mr. Johnson nominated Kent Bernier for pro tem. They had my name in there. And on page 4, Ms. Purnell made the motion to discuss changing mask mandate, not Ms. Cleaton. And they had Cleaton listed instead of Ms. Purnell, so. Those are the only corrections I have.
Okay, and I had, under, I think it's written communications, the last one on, and I have it at the top of page 3. It says, at the December 20th, 21st meeting, council discussed that the discussions would occur and they would coordinate. I changed the word, whatever the word was there, I changed it to coordinate vendors. Rather than, don't have what the original word is. And then it said motion carried with 1 nay, and again, that was me. Under Planning Commission, under the 140 Railroad Street demolition permit requested, after the sentence that the motion carried for the demolition, I added a sentence saying, Ms. Thompson agreed to correspond with the owner to ensure that the demolition is done in an environmentally safe manner due to its proximity to Spring Creek. Under new business, where Randy changed Clayton to, the last sentence should say failed because it had no second. It just, it said motion had no second. I think it needs to be clarified. It said motion failed because it had no second. And then in the next paragraph, council appointed John Eaton to the authority via a 5-4 hand raised vote. And
Where was that at? Same page?
next paragraph, regarding the Borough Authority, it just said, council appointed Eaton to the authority via a vote. It didn't say what kind of vote it was. And since it was a hand raise, they didn't have the names. I just said 5-4. Then, down at the bottom, we're talking about the committee as a whole. I don't know if this needs to be added or not, but I added it just in case. Where it says, Mr. Bernier moved to have a committee as a whole, Johnson second, and motion carried. Then there was another discussion regarding work sessions. And I said, and what I added here was a discussion of how to run the work sessions was presented by Mr. Stewart. Parkview Heights issues was added to the list of potential topics to the one that Mr. Stewart listed. These will be presented at the next meeting for council to pick and choose the priority items. And one last one, regarding the wage increases. It said Tosti Vasey moved to give the non-union employees. To clarify what the sentence, I changed it to the same wage increases has Public Works. And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I need to read this? All right. Okay, so I had my three, which was the amendment by Ms. Tosti Vasey on the 2 spaces for the compact vehicles only. The Mr. Johnson correction for nominee Mr. Bernier. Ms. Purnell for the motion of changing the mask mandate, not Ms. Cleaton. Ms. Tosti Vasey added coordinate vendors. Council discussed the discussion, that discussions would occur and they would coordinate vendors. And that was in the paragraph talking about arts and crafts fair and winter market. The next change was Ms. Thompson agreed to correspond with the owner to ensure that demolition is done in an environmentally safe manner due to the proximity of Logan Run.
It's actually Spring Creek. Logan Run's the other end of town.
It's actually Buffalo Run.
Buffalo Run, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. When I couldn't remember Buffalo Run, I switched it to Spring Creek.
Ms. Vasey moved to, okay, that was the 2 parking spaces to compact cars. We both had that one, but she told me it was hers. Ms. Tosti Vasey moved to restrict 2 parking spaces to compact cars and be posted no trucks, SUVs according to vehicle code. Mr. Johnson second, motion carried. The amendment then carried with 1 nay, Tosti Vasey. And the last one I can see here is Ms. Tosti Vasey would move to give the non-union employees the same wage increases as Public Works.
Need a motion.
Yep, need a motion for that. We have a motion to
So-
approve those changes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Deb
second it.
Cleaton, second by Ms. Tosti Vasey. Any further discussion on that? Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so we finished up with Harb, and we will slide down here. I think we're done with the consent agenda.
Yes.
We're now going into reports. Mr. Mayor, it's up to your turn for your report.
Mayor's report. Tonight is more of a status report or an update as to my first couple weeks of mayor. Chief Weaver and I have been in regular contact. He's been excellent to work with. I appreciate that. We had a couple very productive meetings, took a tour of the police facility, which I strongly encourage in the future that council all takes a tour with Chief Weaver and myself. We're looking to schedule meetings with myself and each of the police officers in the future so we can get to know each other a little better. We're going to look to try and do that in February. And I'm going to begin to look at some ride-alongs with the police officers. Dawn and Ralph, thank you. You've been very, very helpful. Any questions I've had, you've been there to help me as, you know, some of this is kind of unknown, and you've been a great resource, giving me resources and people to reach out to find out community events or milestones or grand openings that that I want to attend to be visible within the community. And finally, I just want to say, my wife and I went to the Belfant ice skating rink. If you haven't had an opportunity to do that, please do. There were some couples there, and I tried to welcome them and thank them for coming to Belfant, and it's really nice. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do that yet, please go check it out. It was pretty neat to see families enjoying our town. So that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any questions of the mayor? Seeing none, Chief Weaver, I know you have a written report. Do you have any comments for tonight?
If anyone has any questions with the police report, I know there's a lot of terminology on here that you might not see quite often. If you have any questions now, feel free to ask, or feel free to email me if you want me to, or call me. Pick the phone up and call or email if you have any specific questions. If there's anything that you would want to see in the report that is not in there, also communicate that through me or the mayor, and I'll do the best I can to get that information in there. If there's any questions, you can ask them now. An outside agency would be like Children and Youth Services,
Okay.
or another county agency, Office of Aging, pretty much anything that's, that's outside of law enforcement. And it'll say, if it's a outside request, it'll say, like if it's a 35, that would be the designator for Spring Township, and then 38 would be Patton Township, PSP, and so forth.
Would that include the domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking protocols, or is that still?
No, that's listed as domestic violence.
Okay,
That's its own.
so
that's
all
its
those
own
are under
call.
domestic violence?
Excuse me?
So all three of those are under domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, how does, what's supplement mean?
A supplement, I went down through this with the mayor. If we have, say, a criminal mischief incident that happened on Tuesday, and I got some more information, or the officer received more information, and he goes back and pulls a supplement and goes and, like, if he's going to go question someone, he'll call the county over the radio and say, I'm going to be on a supplement to an earlier incident, and I'm going to be at 125 East High Street. That's a supplement.
Thank you.
A continuation or investigation of an incident that's already pulled.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions of the chief?
What's the difference, one more, difference between traffic stop and traffic?
Okay, a traffic stop would be when the lights come on and you get pulled over. A traffic incident would be, I could be driving down the road and see a garbage can laying in the middle of the street. I'll
Okay.
pull over, pull an incident for traffic, debris in the roadway, and that's a traffic incident. Or someone is following someone who's swerving, they'll call 911 and they'll pull a traffic incident. And
Great,
yes, sir.
thank you, Chief.
Any others?
Thank you.
3, 2, 1? Okay. And then Gina had put in an Office of Community Affairs updates because there were a few notes. I do have, under the draft for 11022 planning meeting, actually it was the hard meeting, Mr. Snyder moved to have Belfont Council amend the sign ordinance before installation of historic plaques, second by Ms. Dunn. That motion passed through Harb. But as that went on, then Gina said that she was currently working on the ordinance and that she could add the amendment pertaining to historic plaques. But if a motion is required, then I'll call for a motion to approve amending the sign ordinance to include historic plaques.
I don't think it does, because it's still in Gina's hands, and she
Yes.
says she's gonna take care of it.
That's
We
what I
can look at
thought.
it and see if it's there, and if it's not, then we can add it later.
Yeah, she's gonna come up with a revised draft and give it to council.
I just wanted to put that out there so
Yes.
people were aware that that was
Sure.
suggested. The certificates of approval for 133 and 413 were completed under consent agenda. We do have an appointment to make for Harb. There's
So I'll make the motion to approve Mike Lee Leakey as the registered architect on the Historical Architectural Review Board. And for those who don't know, this is a requirement by state law that we have an architect, and we've been missing one for a while. And this would approve with an expiration date of January 1st, 2025.
Well, it's part of our ordinance, regulated historic district, how we
Yeah.
made up the board,
Yeah.
where it calls for a registered architect.
This has been the hardest seat to fill.
Okay, is there, we have a second?
I'll second McKean.
Second, Mr. Keen, thank you. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve Mr. Leakey to Harb as recommended by the Harb Committee with that term running from January 1st, 2025. I summarized that, but it's the bulk of the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Then we have the Center Region Codes report. I think this is for November, not December. I thought in the packet it said December, but it's basically November's
Okay.
notes. So I don't know if anybody else caught that or not. Then we have the nuisance report. Mr. Brooks, would you like to comment on the report?
Oh, pretty self-explanatory unless you have any questions.
Yes, it's submitted, it's there for your review.
That was for the entire, you get like an annual report.
It was for the month of December and an annual review summary.
He is proposing an action item.
Yeah, I think that was farther on the agenda.
No, it's down here,
It's
it's right next.
here.
No, I'm not. Okay. Yeah, there's, what Mr. Brooks referring to is considering increasing the snow removal fine from $25 to $50 to be in line with the grass cutting fines, and is requesting council action. So I'll call for a motion to consider increasing the snow removal, ice removal from fine from $25 to $50 to be in line with the grass cutting fine of $50. Do I have a motion?
Clayton, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Clayton.
Deb Clayton, second.
I'll second Sedgwick.
Ms. Sedgwick. Discussion. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. You got your increase.
Could I make a statement right now regarding, because we just had this big snowstorm? I think for the public's purpose, people who use wheelchairs can't get down a sidewalk when you only shovel one shovel width wide. So when you're shoveling your sidewalk, please shovel the entire width of the sidewalk. So people who use wheelchairs and people who need to hold on to somebody else or a cane while they're walking down the street can walk on the sidewalk rather than having to get out into the street. It's truly a safety issue. Thank you.
I'll just add that if anybody sees that occurring, just contact the borough and we can get Harry out there or possibly the police to have that verified.
There is some information about the ordinance that's posted on the Facebook
Harry,
page. To Joanne's point, there is information about the ordinance that's posted on the Facebook page and on the Belfont Borough website currently, but specifically to Joanne's comment, the ordinance does says that the sidewalk needs to be cleared edge to edge. So she absolutely correct, a small path down the middle is not comply with the ordinance. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Okay, we have the borough manager's report. Ralph, do you have any comments you want to pull from here?
It's submitted. I've made a couple of things, or brought up a couple of points just since I had the opportunity. How to contact me, someone contacts you after hours, what to do. If you at any time have any questions, please give me a call. I'll try to help any way I can resolve a matter for a citizen or property owner or what have you. So it's there, always looking for any, feedback or comments. So thank you.
Any questions of our manager? Seeing none, we will move on to liaison reports. I just put a blurb in here.
You have your handout that's at the table.
There are two reports for civil service. One is a reorganizational meeting that was completed on the 3rd of 2022. Meeting lasted quite a while, it was 11:05 to 11:12. Civil service annual report is also included. And I sent out my heads-up note for the weekend prior to the meeting, and the liaison list has been revised a couple times, but the latest one that is at the table tonight was one that kind of finished up late into the weekend. Downtown Belfont, the DBI was moved from committee to administrative with Ms. Thompson as a liaison. The committees were retitled to special committees. That included the Belfont Fire Department, Executive Committee, which I'm involved with, Center Region Council of Governments, which I attend those meetings, Center County Library, was Doug Clayton, I believe you're on a 2-year term, is that correct?
3.
3 year? Okay. I wasn't sure, I should have called you. Those fire exec meetings are on the 4th Thursday of every month, starting with Thursday, January 27th. It's every other month. I chair those meetings based on Chapter 35. They require the person directed to safety to run those meetings due to previous issues, whatever. But that's that there. The COG meeting I attend, the only thing I really have any thing to add to those meetings is anything with code inspections, fire inspections, things like that. Anything that has to do with money, we're not involved with that, so I just abstain most of the time through those talks. Belfont, and I also attend the Workplace Safety Committee. And there was a couple on here that, with the changes that we made with the list and with going to, a whole group and doing away with some of the committees, there are some committees that do need to have a liaison, in my view. One of those that was on here, the Talleyrand Park Committee. What I'd like to do is just make that a Parks Committee and put a liaison on that, so that we are paying attention to the parks. A lot of good work has been done over the years with the parks and improvements, and would not like to let that slip because it's not being looked at. And I'll make that appointment. And that was,
So on the original, you had me, and on this new one, you have it's nobody.
right, I don't know where that, because I always thought Melissa was part of that.
Melissa and I have been part of the Talleyrand Park Committee. I started on it when I chaired the Parks Committee, and then she took it over, and we were both asked to continue. So I'm still on it if you still want me to be,
Okay.
but it's up to you.
Okay, I will let you know.
Okay.
I just want to get it out in front of everybody before I did anything. Okay, that takes care of that.
Do you want any other reports?
No, I don't have anything listed on the agenda for other reports.
Just that the Spring Creek Watershed Commission is meeting tomorrow night. There is no report other than the meeting tomorrow night, and the meeting here in this room. And I do have a couple questions. When I look through this list, in the administrative report section, there's nothing about the Pennsylvania Municipal League. That wouldn't be irregular, but that's something that Ralph and Don could be doing. So that should probably be added. And also, at the last meeting, I offered to continue attending the weekly White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs briefing, and would be willing to come back to council for anything that either the community at large or the council or administration might be interested in. The question is, do you want me to do that or not?
At this point, I'm not sure if that's necessary.
Okay. Don't do it. Okay. Well, I'll attend anyway, and if I find something interesting, so be it.
You're gonna get that one.
I got the Pennsylvania Municipal League. Yes.
You guys like superheroes or something?
I guess.
Okay, so we're gonna now move into current, old, and new business. We're gonna start with the, go ahead, Rob. I'll let you handle this.
Boy, I didn't know if you wanted me to sort of lead in.
Yep.
The first item is Belfant Borough Authority letter to Spring Creek Watershed King. So, it's self-explanatory. I know as I put the information together, I tried to include some of the previous letters that were going back and forth, especially new members and so on, so you get an idea of the correspondence that's taking place, how the borough is involved, the Borough Authority, and Spring Creek Watershed Commission. But in a nutshell, it leads into the next item, the One Water Plan resolution. I'm going to paraphrase in my mind. I'll say June, July, August, somewhere around there. We had a presentation from 2 people from Spring Creek Watershed Commission here in the council room. They had requested that the Borough Council, consider adopting or approving the resolution that proposed for this One Water Plan. Somewhere along the way, I don't know if it was through Mr. Johnson being a representative on the authority and on council, somewhere along the way, someone said, shouldn't the Borough Authority have some say or some recommendation on this? So it went over to the authority. The same representatives came to an authority meeting. I would say that was probably in August. And then there was some time where we were waiting for letters to go back and forth. And those letters are in the packet. So what you don't see is a presentation, the PowerPoint that was made. But if you want it, we can make it available to you or get it for you. But in essence, in November was the last letter from the commission. And then this past Tuesday was the letter from the authority back to the Spring Creek Watershed Commission in response to their November letter. So everything's there. The first part says council may take action regarding the letter. Basically the letter's asking that the authority be the voice for the water system. And then later on, you'll have to decide whether council should or should not approve or take action on the resolution.
So I will make a motion to,
Hang
go
on.
on, okay.
I have a written motion since I have to remember these things and put them out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call for a motion to support the letter from Bellefonte Borough Authority of 1/11/2022 sent to the Spring Creek Watershed Commission not to join the One Water Plan.
I will make that motion.
Mr. Johnson?
I will second that.
Mr. Dan? Discussion.
Okay.
I'm going to vote no on that motion, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. We can follow the authority's recommendation to disapprove. However, if we do so, then we will not have a seat at the table in crafting the One Water Plan for the Spring Creek watershed. According to water laws here in Pennsylvania has implemented, upstream communities have first dibs and control over the water. We only have control over the water once it reaches Big Spring. Without our input, communities that are involved in the planning could theoretically create a plan that is advantageous to them and disadvantageous to our water at the Big Spring. Currently, the majority of the communities within the Watershed Commission have passed the resolution, and this will be going forward whether or not we agree to it. By being at the technical working group table that will be working on the plan, we could make sure that our water reaches us without negative impact. This table will most likely include representatives from the municipalities that have passed the resolution, as well as their associated water and sewage authorities, technical and legal experts, and nonprofits such as Clearwater Conservancy and Trout Unlimited. But in order to be at that table, we need to pass the resolution. So for that reason, I would be voting no on their authority's recommendation, and if we get to the resolution, I will be voting yes on the resolution.
Any other discussion?
I just point out the authority, because I sat in on their meetings, they didn't say they would never join, they didn't say they would never approve the resolution. They asked for clarification through a method of resolution, which we're all familiar with, for clarifying what is in what's called a plan. They're not interested in being regulated on how to sell water in the future or who gets the water.
And none of that's will be in the plan.
So they asked for a resolution to clarify their points that apparently was turned down. I'm paraphrasing what happened.
We never got
They never-
a
they-
positive response
The
that there would be a
response-
No, there
resolution.
was,
One at a time.
there was a response. In the August letter, Paul and Bill wrote back, if you want to have a change in the resolution, we're willing to hear it, but you need us to give us the language. That never happened. So we don't have the words that the authority wanted to create those changes.
I thought it said they were not interested in changing
No,
any
that's not
bylaw.
what
The way I understood letters, they said if we, the Bellefonte Borough Authority, wanted to pass a resolution, we were welcome to.
Right,
But they basically
they
said,
refused. Yeah.
they said based on their articles of whatever
Exactly right.
incorporation, they didn't need to pass a
No,
resolution.
and my interpretation, and this is, I think, where the confusion is coming in, is that we had the resolution in front, their last two paragraphs of that resolution said that there would not be any control of what the water authority does. You could pull out at any time. There was no funding required of the authority or the borough in doing this plan. Funding would come from whoever of the entities wanted to put funds in, or from grants that they're going to be fundraising for. If those two paragraphs were not enough and you wanted to add to that to make it more palatable,
Yeah.
they were fine with that, but you needed to give us the language, and apparently that did not come through.
Again, I sat in on these meetings, I'm familiar with both the sides. I am in a difficult position, but I will say that all they had to do was copy the sentence and place it in a resolution, and that would have sufficed. You know, that's all they were looking for.
So
They want to make sure that this does not turn into regulation. I don't know how I can state it any different.
And when you say there's no cost, if you look at the document, it says up to $500,000, and then you said, well, it's been reduced to $300,000, and there's no pot of money anywhere.
So the meeting tomorrow
And
night,
if it costs the borough a dime, I'm not participating, and the authority has made a recommendation to this council. And any other authorities that make recommendations to the council, usually they adhere to those. We're not interested in having another layer of government control what we have here. And when you say people south of us will be punching more holes and withdrawing our water before it gets here, I don't believe that. We've had that spring in here for hundreds of years, and the production of water has not decreased. And there are regulations to prevent that from happening upstream from us. So why do we need another layer of government that controls the water that we have? That's what Belfont was founded on. And if you go to any resident in this borough, they're not interested in others having a part in our water system right now. We have the opportunity, if we turn this down now, it says, anytime if you choose to join, you can join. So let it go. If a year from now we see, you know what, we made a mistake, let's join. But for now, I'm not interested in
but
it.
up until that point, you do not have a say in what the plans are doing. That's all I'm saying. So it's up to council. If you want to stay out of the conversations, you would vote yes on the motion. If you want to have a say at the table from the beginning, you would vote no on this motion.
I want to, go ahead, Mr.
Did
Bernier.
did we already do that?
No,
We haven't done it, we're still having discussion.
we just have the motion in a second.
Since there are so many of us that are new here, and I'm trying to get caught up on all of this too, Is it possible to table this?
Yes,
So we could have a real discussion amongst all of us? I have also heard from some residents that are very upset about this and do not want this, and perhaps this even needs to go, and one woman requested even a public hearing at some point. I think this is very serious, and I think we really need to take our time with it,
Once we become part of this program, we're on grant funding.
right?
And how they regulate who gets the grant funding, we will end up at the bottom of the funnel. The more powerful townships and boroughs will come before us. We could be cutting our own throat by participating. Or we could say, if you have a proposal and you want us to take part of the grant, let us know, show us the grant, and maybe we'll support it. We don't have to be part of a one water plan to support those grants. But once we are, that's the first step in controlling our borough water.
Right, and I totally agree with you,
What's
Doug.
before us right now, Mr. President? I mean, I'm looking at the letter from the president of the Belfant Borough Authority. He's asking council to go along with his decision to not.
Basically, yeah, it's,
Are we trying to make a decision on this right now?
that's the motion, yeah,
Okay.
So,
is to support their letter. Not to
so if you want to do
participate.
what Barbie says, you would make a motion to table, and we could just save it till later, or you go ahead and vote on this
Well,
motion.
before we do that, I want to pass my gavel to Mr. Johnson if you're done.
Yeah, I've said all I can say.
You know, you need to, letter's the one thing, but you need to look at the agreement. And when they say it doesn't cost you anything, you can get in or you can get out. I'll turn to Section 8, termination. An individual municipality may withdraw from the Spring Creek watershed with the enactment of an ordinance by the governing body and shall provide written 90-day notice thereof, Spring Creek watershed. Individual municipal termination will be without prejudice. However, any assets will remain with the state, with the Spring Creek watershed, and any individual municipality liability will be assessed against the exiting municipality. That's money you're going to pay back. So there's so many things in this, and you have so many phases. You know, we've been doing this, what, since 2007, I believe, and, you know, we're kind of in phases. Each year there seems to be a phase. Now you're questioning, when you sign that resolution, you're signing the resolution to approve phase 2 as well as phase 3, which isn't even completed. It's not well explained. But the basic bulk of phase 3 right now is hiring people. And I think that's what referenced the money that Mr. Johnson was talking about. I'm not crazy about a one water plan. I think, you know, we have our rights with that water. And as he said, as Mr. Johnson said, if we get into another level of government, who's going to control it? Who's going to let, well, Belfont wants to do something with the water, you know, with maybe down to the sewer plant or something like that. We have to go through the commission to get permission. And if the commission disapproves, those improvements won't get made. And I agree with Mr. Johnson as well with the grants. If we join with them and we go in as a group, what's our share of the grant gonna be? I don't know. Nobody knows. And it talks about they don't want to be leaders, they don't want to own anything, yet throughout their agreement, it talks about leadership and powers and things. I mean, you gotta look at this stuff. And I'm fine with tabling, as you know, but these are the items that are in the packet right now that you need to put a big red mark on so you don't forget to look at it and make notes about what you're reading. And then we move on from there if it gets tabled or we vote on tonight. Thank you.
I have a question. So a few years ago, Nestle wanted to come in and put in a water plant. So if we were to join the watershed, would they be able to agree to that and take over the water and bring Nestle in? No?
Wait a minute, what was the question again? Because the watershed or this authority should have had nothing to do with that Nestle's agreement.
was
And there was some misunderstanding and misrepresentation that went on during that. And that's a good thing to bring up. Yes. So to answer your question, they could do that if we were part of this. We were asking for a resolution in their proposal to prevent that from happening. But in their documents, they say they have no governance over us, no control, we can get in or out at any time. Well, then what's the idea of having us participate? Because we could say today, yes, we'll participate, and a month later, we can say, well, no, thank you, we're out now. So we already have layers of government that are doing the same thing. I think the primary reason is to look at the One Water Plan and see that every borough and township participates so that when grants are written, you know how favorably grants look when you have a total community on the document. So even though we have a representative, where do we end up once those grants are written? We don't know. But it's going to cost us to participate in this program. Even though she says it's not, you don't get $300,000 out of the air. Somebody has to contribute. And Joanne may say, well, we'll get grants, but until then, what do we use? I'm not approving $1 from this borough to support this. I'm not.
Thank you.
During the Nestle event, there was some people on the commission that wanted to have a say in it, and at that point in time, the articles of
It was against the law, basically.
basically said that as a commission, we are an advisory group only. We are not, and we cannot take a stand on one community or another's plans for the use and control of their water. This is very similar. If by passing this resolution, you have a say at the table, but they do not have an ability to control anything about our water. That is a decision left to our authority. That has been clearly stated in the minutes of the Spring Creek watershed previously, and specifically with the example you just raised.
I'm gonna pass my gavel again, and I'm gonna respond to that comment that depends on what phase you're on. Right now, we're looking at phase 3, we don't know where phase 3 is going. Next year or 2 years, it might be phase 4, and then 2 years after that, it might be phase 5. And things are gonna change, things are gonna progress. And I think that, in the long term, could hurt Belfont more than making this decision tonight, because we never know what's coming up. Like I said, look through the materials and pull out keywords like leadership, management. It's in there. It's almost on every page. I'm done.
I'm not for tabling it. I think we need to move forward with it. If we want to revisit in 6 months, fine, we'll reconsider it. But for now, it needs to be done. And then, tabling doesn't do anything except kick the can down the road. So either do it or not. And if you want to revisit it in 6 months or a year, fine. Get community support to come in here to a public meeting and tell us we want to participate in the One Water Plan. Go to the borough residents and ask them and have a public hearing and have them come in and tell us how badly they want to participate in a One Water Plan. But for tonight, I don't think we should table it. I think we should end it right now.
Do we need a motion to support the
Yeah, we already
Belfont
have that.
Borough
We have that motion.
Authority President's recommendation that we do not support the resolution? or
We have the
one-
motion to support not the resolution, we're talking about the letter sent by the borough authority
Okay.
to Spring Creek Watershed.
So if I understand, if you vote, to be clear, if you vote yes on this, the next item is moot, correct?
It should be, that's my
Okay,
thought too.
that's my,
The next item is mute, you mean it goes away?
yep,
Yeah.
And that's the
That's the
resolution.
resolution.
resolution, but if you're supporting the letter, you're saying that we're not gonna do anything with the resolution, so the resolution then immediately becomes moot, and there's no action on it.
Yes.
So just so I'm clear, so by supporting the Borough Authority letter that went to Mr. Takak and Mr. Sharp,
Yes,
we are saying that we do not want to participate in this.
That is correct.
So we
That's what
would
the
be
letter said.
voting yes
Yep,
on the
so it's a
vote.
Positive motion, that's why I like positive motions, because if you're in favor of it, you say yes, and if you're not, you give a
Okay.
nay.
And I
So,
believe, Mr. Johnson, you said if we would happen to reconsider in the future, that we would be able to go in at that point or that time.
That's what's been told to us, yes. We can get out or get in at any time.
okay.
I would like a roll call vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? Before we move on. Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Bernier,
I'm in favor of not supporting
is he
the
there?
resolution or the one water plan.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
Yes.
Ms. Dan,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. McKean,
Yes.
Mr. Purnell, Ms. Purnell,
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey.
No,
The yeses have it, 8-1.
8 to what?
8-1.
Okay, with that, that also then, we will bypass the supporting the resolution as well. Well, I think that takes us down to you. Go ahead.
Ralph can, he can take that. He knows what it is. Unless you want me to, Ralph.
Well, it's a sustainability project. I assume that's the next item.
Yep.
Talking about.
You're right. That's right.
I read over the sustainability, 2-3 page handout. Basically, it's identifying what the spring project will be, which is simply a communications device in relation to what was a climate action plan that turned into the Environmental Advisory Board, how to communicate to residents. So it's like an outline for the Penn State students that have done sustainability type projects, maybe basically a senior class project on behalf of the borough. We help with minor expenses in their class project, and then they do a presentation with council, and they have like a career fair, usually close to the university at the end of the semester. So that's what the couple page handout identifies. I don't know if anybody you want to.
I can just add a couple things just for those that are new. We, the borough, probably got involved with Penn State's sustainability program about 8 years ago. It's a collaborative effort. I look at it more of us, finding projects, real life projects that help the students. That's primarily the impact of it. There has been some instances where their work has benefited the borough. Namely, a number of years ago, they did some work for us on Musser Lane composting site, which helped us obtain a grant from DEP to work and get some equipment for that area. This particular project, Ralph said, about a year or two ago, the borough did a climate action plan. In the plan itself, it states that, that you would establish an environmental advisory board, which we have established one. It's been meeting every other week. It's just to kind of come up with training sessions and look at impact on how we're doing with the climate action plan over time. As far as this particular project, we already have funding according to Penn State. We still have funding available, so there wouldn't be any cost for this spring project if it's to come to fruition.
Any questions? Penn State University sustainability projects. Okay, thank you. Alerted draft ordinance. We'll be moving into discussion. We talked about this for half an hour at the work session. I prepared a motion for a call for a motion I'll give Ted, we'll probably have to make some amendments, I'm not sure, but let me get this so we can just get to discussion. I'll call for a motion to advertise the draft of the LERTA ordinance and approve corresponding with school district and county regarding their interest/approval.
I'll make that motion, please.
Ted Clayton, motion, second.
I'll second that, Dan.
Dan, second. Discussion.
So I think, I'm trying to rephrase what we talked about in the work session. We're going to advertise by putting this draft on our website and advertise a public hearing for the next council meeting night, which is February 7th. It's about approximately 3 weeks from tonight.
That's right, Ralph. We wouldn't be advertising the ordinance.
No.
We're gonna be advertising the public hearing,
The
like you're
public
saying.
hearing, but
Exactly.
we want to maybe post the draft.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, we want to post the draft and let people know about the draft and the public
Public
hearing. Now, that we would actually advertise. So that's what I
Do
understand.
we need to amend the motion then?
Well, yes, he had it pre-written, so it needs some modifications.
I'll make a substitute motion, make it much easier, much quicker. I make a substitute motion to
You're making an
advertise a
amendment.
public hearing for the
You're
LERTA.
making an amendment, right?
No, a substitute means
We
we don't
already
have to
have
go
the-
through, no, a substitute amendment means that you vote on this. If we take the substitute, we don't have to go back to the first one. It's a quicker way around it.
I've never used that before. I thought that once a motion, you only have one motion at a time.
You have an emotion,
So I
and you
think-
can either amend it, or you can make a full substitute, and what I'm
Well,
doing is a full substitute.
What I would ask is for the person who made the motion and the person who seconded to agree to take away that motion,
Withdrawal.
withdraw the motion. Fine. Okay. Mr. Johnson and Ms. Dan agreed to remove the motion.
Okay, so the new motion then is to advertise a public hearing on the LERTA with posting of the ordinance and general outline thoughts and questions on the website.
Yes.
And to be held at the February 7th meeting, not March 7th.
Did I say March? Oh, sorry.
It's wishful thinking, Ralph.
It's baseball season.
I will second that.
Second by Mr. Johnson, motion made by Ms. Tuscadez. And for my health, would you just go ahead and repeat your motion?
Yes. Advertise a public hearing with a posting of the proposed ordinance, highlighting the areas we need information on and any other areas we have questions on that, with the posting. And the meeting will be, public hearing will be held in conjunction with the next council meeting on February 7th.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. Council retreat. We'll give a recap on this. and-
We talked about, it was basically a focused planning session that was planned and talked about in 2021. We didn't have the funds budgeted, so we brought it up for discussion in our work session this evening. I don't know where council wants to go
Yeah,
with it.
I know, let's get a motion on so we can at least discuss
sorry.
it, but I have a call for a motion to set a date and time for council retreat using Doodle calendar, or we can make a motion to table.
Yes.
So, whichever you prefer.
Do we have a third alternative?
Well, that's the only two I got right now.
I
My third
think-
alternative is, instead of a retreat,
There was an
we
interest-
have an orientation
orientation.
training
Yes.
program to bring people up to speed.
Let's
Yes.
change council retreat to orientation. So the call for a motion to set a date and time for orientation. If we won't need the calendar, I think we can do it during a work session.
Well,
No.
let me start looking at dates and talking with supervisors and so on, and we'll try to do it as soon as, we can coordinate everything.
Okay, so we can't set a date then or a time at this point.
So just a general motion for council orientation, whether it's in a work
Yeah.
session or a separate
Yeah,
meeting.
Date and time to be determined.
Yeah.
You know.
Work session, we don't need more meetings.
Yes, it'd be during a work session, ideally.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to have an orientation during a work session to be decided,
Date and time to be decided.
and time to be decided.
I'll make that motion, Bernier.
Veneer,
Okay.
second?
I'll Second.
Ms. Vacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Diamond improvement plans, we talked about this again at the work session. Based on what the map is there, I would call for a motion to replace materials currently used on crosswalks in the Diamond area. That would be a total of 6 crosswalks.
Yes, I would just qualify that, say we're gonna get a revised estimate, you know,
And which includes a revised estimate.
yeah, check our
There's 7 up
resources.
there.
And
There's 7 up there, it's not 6.
we'll count, make sure.
Yeah, I think there's 7, but I don't even think we should motion. I think we
Yes.
decided we were gonna come back at the next meeting with more information, and then we can make the motion at that time.
Yeah, that would be a better
Yeah,
method.
exactly.
Yes.
I will not call for that motion. We will just
Wait
move
for
it to the next
information,
meeting.
yes.
So we're going to wait till the next meeting so we have more information to work with.
Yes.
Vacancy board appointment.
I don't believe
We
I
don't-
received any at this point. It's, you know, it's recommended, they do it at the beginning of the year, you don't have to, but it's recommended.
Here's a thought, and I don't know if this is a reasonable thought or not, but Nathaniel Porter, in his application, said he would be interested in doing anything that he best fit at. I don't know if that might be something he would be interested in. We could ask.
Yeah, could you possibly reach out to him and bring this
Yes.
back to the next meeting?
Yes.
Let's do that. So Mr. Stewart will reach out. What's the gentleman's name?
Nathaniel Porter.
Nathaniel Porter.
Nathaniel Porter, to see if he's interested, and come back to the next meeting, February 7th.
Okay.
Then we move to new business, there's nothing else for old business. Oh, I'm sorry, yep, sorry, almost forgot. So we need to add the stormwater engineer, which we missed at the reorganizational meeting. John, you have a motion for that?
The guy who, I don't
Don
have
France.
Don Franson.
I moved to have Don Francis become our stormwater engineer.
Second,
I'll second that.
Mr. Johnson, so the motion is to appoint Don Francis as our stormwater engineer. Any discussion?
I would offer that he has been our stormwater engineer for many years. He's very familiar with the borough and the stormwater issues that we've been dealing with. He's comes at a reasonable fee, and I think that our staff feel very comfortable working with him. So that's why I would recommend reappointing him.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those not in agreement signify by saying nay. Okay, motion carries. Now we're getting to new business. The EV charging station. Dawn, you wrote that note. You want to kind
We're doing it for 2 things before
We're
that?
jumping around, or,
of, what am I doing?
we got a memo, just an FYI on Riff Raff Week, community yard sale, and Halloween, holiday parking and so on, just so you're aware. Those dates
So
were,
do we not need a motion to pick which Riff Raff week? There were 2 weeks mentioned.
was there,
I
I think?
didn't think this was on the agenda for approval tonight. I think it was their information.
Yeah, I think we,
So it's
we
not
picked-
on
It
the,
does say FYI.
yeah, it is an FYI. We picked the date back in October, whenever that memo first came out.
But there are 2 dates mentioned for Riff Raff. That's why I'm asking.
Whatever date it is, we picked it. I can verify that. I don't have it in front of me.
Can we go back then, because on the memo that was in the packet, this information, it said that there were 2 possible dates. One was May 20th and 21st, and the other one with And with Rifa 23rd, 27th, the other was the week before. They're both listed there, and we usually only do
Yeah,
one.
what I would do is check the minutes of our council meetings and
Okay.
see what we picked, and let you know at the next
Okay.
meeting.
Thanks.
Yes,
Yes,
So- I'm sorry.
Good.
Well, the next item is the Belfont Cruise Committee of Historic Belfont Incorporated donated $2,500 of their fundraising funds to buy a picnic bench. And they would like to put it in Talleyrand Park. And of course, put a little plaque recognizing the cruise committee for their efforts. I just have a note here. On behalf of the Borough Council and staff, we want to thank the cruise members and volunteers for the great events they do each year, and then especially this donation. It's greatly beneficial and helpful for, especially during this time with people wanting to sit outside more, so very much appreciated.
This will be replacing one of those
Yes.
wooden ones that are falling apart?
Yeah, the wooden ones were temporary with COVID, but you can see they're not in very good condition.
Very good.
So I think now we're on to the
Now, well, what
evening.
happened was what I had on my screen was supposed to be the updated
Oh,
agenda, but that person was left off, so that was all on me. So, yeah, now we're gonna talk about the memo for the EV charging stations that was damaged in a power blow.
You see from the memo that on the 26th of December, we had must have been a power surge or a transformer blow over near the Moose, and that evidently that following week, we had some folks calling the borough saying that the EV charging stations that were purchased through a DEP grant were blown and not working, so that's pretty much the extent of it. We talked to our insurance company, but it's we have a $5,000 deductible, so the fact that these costs would cost about probably anywhere between $3,500 and $4,000 to replace them, the deductible's not gonna, because of that, we'd have to figure out what to do, so we're just looking for some direction here.
I'll put a motion out there, just so we get the discussion going. I'll call for a motion to repair the EV charging stations in the north lot for the estimated $3,800 using monies from the parking fund. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Trustee Vacy?
I will second that, Clayton.
And Ms. Clayton, second. Discussion?
How long were those charging stations in use before they were disabled?
They were put in May, 3 years ago.
Has it been that long?
Yes, and the only reason I know that is
Oh, yeah.
because I contacted Colton Brown at Drive Electric PA this afternoon, because it is his office that got us that grant for those. And what he said was that, and I sent
Yes,
Randy,
I saw that, yes.
the three of you, a copy of his email
Yeah.
after my phone call. The grant that we originally received, the funds came out in May of 2019. Yeah. They are part of the VW settlement funds. Usually there is a 3-year waiting period for replacements. And if so, we would have to wait until May before those funds would come available. He said this is the first time anybody who has gotten one of these grants has contacted him saying that we had a problem. They have no protocol at this point as to how to handle that. He's going to be working on it. He right now is thinking that because it was not our fault, we may be able to get a grant to replace them. But if it had been our fault, or is it just normal wear and tear, we would not have been able to replace it. But he doesn't have the answer for that yet. He also said that the Clipper Creeks, in terms of the 3,800, and I looked on the website after, they're about $1,000 a piece. The other question he asked, and I didn't have the answer to, is was it just the charging units that were damaged, or was the electrical wiring as well? If it was the electrical wiring, there would be some additional cost. But he said that in terms of the ones we had, the Clipper Creeks are very good and they're relatively inexpensive. He said many of the others would have been like $3,000 or $4,000 apiece. So actually, we made a good choice initially. The other two places that possibly have funds are the Alternative Fuels Incentive Grant, or the AFIG from DEP, and I talked to Josh Zubik, D-Z-I-U-B-E-K. He says those funds will be reopening in the spring of '22. There's not going to be much money in those particular funds because of the federal bipartisan infrastructure package. But those grants, we wouldn't have a guarantee there because those are competitive grants and a lot of people apply for them. The third possibility that Colton Brown told me about was that the federal bipartisan infrastructure law that passed last year has funds through the PennDOT that will be helping with these electric vehicle infrastructure things. He did not have a contact person to give me, and I looked on the PennDOT website and there wasn't a direct contact, so I could call them. So that's going to have to be some research. So there are three possibilities for funding. The funding from IPA forward, when we got it 3 years ago, we got a 95% rebate. It's now, because ours are not networked, it has gone down to 50%. So they would pay about 50% of what we had. We'd have to match it with the other 50%.
So as far as the motion goes, we can look into where the funds would come from, but I think the main point is getting them on the list to get
Yeah.
repaired.
And in terms of Clipper Creek, I looked at they have a 12 to 30 week backlog in ordering the charges. So the sooner we get on it, the sooner we can get
Well,
them
by then,
repaired.
we might be into May where we qualify for that.
Right.
Great.
I have two other questions related to that. One is, do we have any record of how often these charging stations there have been used? And also, what kind of revenue, if anything, do we get from those?
I can partially answer that.
Okay,
Because they're not networked, we don't have an actual usage. It was something I had recommended 3 years ago, but because it was more expensive to network, council decided to not network, so we don't have that data.
okay.
In terms of revenue, until about a year ago, we weren't allowed to charge for anything.
Was that because it's through a grant, or is
No,
it?
it's because the utilities said that we can't do third-party charging. In other words, we charge somebody else for electricity that are on our bill.
Okay,
Subsequent to that, they have changed it, and I again talked to Colton this afternoon about that, because this question has come up before, and he said that you now can make a decision as to how you might want to charge for using the charging units in addition, and you can basically base it on whatever you think is most practical, based on knowing that the state says you really can't make a profit off of the charging.
I want to move this
So-
along a little bit. and,
So, but anyway, that could be something we could discuss
Thank you.
later.
thank you.
The other issue is that, no, there's no money coming in for those, for
Not
that
at this point.
particular one, because there's a meter on it, and the meter costs us about $500 a year. if I'm not incorrect.
Just having the meter base, well, if you compare this to your home,
Okay,
if you have a meter, electric meter, and you use 0 kilowatts, the power company still charges you a maintenance fee just for that meter
Right.
base.
Is-
We're paying more
For that
just
one.
to have the meter base in than the
Okay.
kilowatts that are being used.
Okay.
So the borough, you and I and the taxpayers are paying, I don't know, $35 a month just for that meter base to be there. On top of that, if it's used for recharging vehicles, we also, as taxpayers of the borough, pay that bill. So is it economical for us to have that in there and pay $35, $40 a month? I don't know, I guess so. But I do support repairing it, but that's the answer to your question.
okay, thank you. Yeah, those were just some other questions I had. Thank you.
How long do they generally last, barring any, accidents like?
How long
The
is-
units,
The charging unit?
units, yeah. What's their expected lifespan?
It probably depends on how many vehicles they charge per day,
Yeah, I
and
don't
what
know.
the rate of charging is, and what is the rate? Is it 50 kilowatt an hour?
The ones, my son
Are
had,
these superchargers or
no,
what?
these are not, so these are level 2 chargers.
So that's like
These,
80?
no, the, Kenneth,
We're kind of getting
th-
off.
this
Yeah.
is, this
Motion
is
there.
going way down the weeds.
Yeah, that's fine.
So-
I'm good to
I
go.
get what you're saying, but I think this happened due to an accident. A transformer blew up and it short-circuited
not our
everything,
fault.
so it's not
Yeah,
a,
I know, but I was
No,
just
no,
wondering
okay, yeah.
what the return on our investment would be, you know, if
Yeah.
we're replacing these things, you know, how long are they gonna last us? And is it worth it to us to do that?
That's something we could check in when we look at the things. They're on new upgraded versions.
It's a reasonable question, and we've asked it before, and it's been dodged. Hey, let's get it repaired.
so, just, you know, if you looked at the options were to not repair it and make it 4 parking spaces. Now, then we go back and take them away to put the electric parking back in, that's gonna cause angst with our residents, I think. And so I think the quicker that we can put these back online, the better.
I agree.
Do you need a second to have it repaired using parking
Now,
plots?
we have the motion.
Okay.
It was, I made a motion.
I
and
lost
Clayton-
track.
The motion is to repair the EV charging stations in the north lot for the estimated $3,800 using monies from the parking fund.
Deb seconded.
And Deb seconded it.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. Is there any more discussion?
So does that mean we'll continue to try to get funding for the 3,800, or
No,
we're just gonna pay the
not
bill
unless,
and
not unless there would be a grant where you
So-
could go back
not in May reapply?
So
or-
let me,
I'm just
that I have an answer for.
Okay.
The way the grant worked the last time is we couldn't put them in before we got the voucher. So if we want to hold off until the monies are available, until we hear back from Colton saying whether it's gonna fly or not, we would possibly say 50%.
and it'd be a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent money on worse things, so I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to repair the EV charging stations using, in the north lot for estimate $3,800 using monies from the parking fund, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
I just want to say, it isn't repair, it's replace.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
good.
Okay, next item, Ralph, you want to cover that?
Sure, let me make sure we got.
Bellefonte Borough Authority.
Yeah, on the Belfont Borough Authority, we had one of the members submit a resignation letter. And I have a couple notes here. We've advertised the position or the vacancy on our website last week. The authority meeting was Tuesday. I think by Wednesday we had it advertised. As you know, Mr. Beagle had his name in to be reappointed. He was not reappointed. Since that time, or since Tuesday, I received two additional applications. I sent, when I forwarded the emails out to everybody, and I have 2 copies, or the 2 applications are at the table this evening. So you have a total of 3 applicants that I believe are interested. The one application doesn't say, it says best fit, but I think with Alyssa talking, you know, the person apparently identified himself as being interested in the authority position. So I'd say there's 3 names as of now.
I make a motion to appoint Brian Connor to the authority.
I'll second that.
I didn't know you were taking them.
I didn't call for any motions yet, but they already took off, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make a motion to appoint Joe Beagle.
I'll second that.
Yeah, okay.
Any other appointments? Okay, seeing none. We will vote for Brian Connor.
Brian first.
I'd like a roll call vote,
Roll
please.
call vote.
So we're only electing one.
Correct.
We're only
Yeah,
electing
will
one
you repeat the
person,
motion,
one
please?
position, one person.
Okay.
So the way,
His name is Brian Bonner, by the way, with a B.
Uh-huh,
Bonner.
It sounded like you said Connor.
no, sorry about that.
Or somebody
That
said
might have been me,
something.
but I
yeah,
had-
just to clarify, the first person that gets a majority vote, it's over. So I think we try to clarify motions as we do these things for processes. Hopefully, we're helpful in doing that.
What are Mr. Beagle's qualifications? I see Bonner's, but
Joe's was in a couple of weeks ago at the last meeting. All his information was in. He's been on the authority for, what, 40 years?
20, at least 30. And he was also on Borough Council. He's very well read with the borough and the procedures of the authority.
I know a lot of
He,
people
he,
are in favor.
he has given a lot of his time to this borough. And, you know, usually anybody that seeks reappointment to an authority, unless there's some really super reason not to be reappointed, usually council goes with that reappointment. The guy's, you know, I'm not saying he makes all the right decisions. You know, you can't please everybody when you sit in this seat, so there are some people that probably don't agree with what he's done, you know, on some cases. But I know he's worked awfully hard as a volunteer to this borough and to the authority. So I don't think he deserves to be thrown out seeking reappointment.
Okay, any other?
No, and you were correct. There's a lot of people in the borough that do support Joe. I received, I believe, 6 emails today supporting him and hoping that he gets appointed for this. And I've also had a phone call to that too. There are a lot of people that care about having him on that, and I know he does care about Belfont and does what he feels is best for the authority and for the residents.
Okay, so we're gonna move on,
Okay.
and we'll go with Brian Borner first. Roll call vote, Dawn.
Okay. Mr. Bernier,
No.
Mr. Bragbill,
No.
Ms. Cleaton,
Yes,
Ms. Stan,
No.
Mr. Johnson,
No,
Ms. McKean,
No,
Ms. Purnell,
No.
Ms. Sedgwick,
Yes.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey.
Yes,
Let the noes have it.
Okay, we'll move to Mr. Biggle.
Okay, let me clear the list here. Okay, Mr. Renier, yes, Mr. Renier,
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill,
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton,
no,
Ms. Stan,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
yes,
Ms. McKean,
Yes.
Ms. Purnell,
Yes.
Ms. Sedgwick,
No.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey.
no,
I believe the yeses have it. Yes, 6-3.
3. For Joe Biggle. So, congratulations, Joe. And we'll move to the next item. That would be our list of 2020 goals, for 2020. I don't want to go back to that.
Please.
But that's 2020. I didn't type that. That must have been me. So a list of 22 goals, 22 goals, to confirm, to discuss the February 7th work session. And we talked about this at the work session. I think we might have enough on our list to go ahead and do this during our next planning
Yeah,
session.
I mean,
I don't think we need to
yeah.
take the time and go through that
Okay.
again.
so the one
Anybody-
that's missing on here is the one I mentioned before, the, out behind the water, stormwater issues behind the bank.
Parkwood, Parkview.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yes, if you, I'll scribble that down, but if you don't see it, will
Appropriate
remind me. I am revising the list a little bit, make it easier when things hit the work sessions and so on. I'll have a draft of a new format by the next meeting.
Okay.
On that, Joanne, we actually did get the report. We received the report from Panoni, so it's a matter of scheduling some time to have them come in and discuss that.
Because that report was like about this thick, and it's all PennDOT information, and yeah, it needs to be explained.
Exactly.
Belfont Environmental Advisory Board. This has to do with the, I guess it's the committee you're on, Joanne?
It's part of what was put forth in the climate action plan that was passed in September 2020.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to put that in there is because we don't get a lot of information back pertaining to what's happening with the plan. And I thought it might be better for the council to deal with that from time to time. If it needs to involve county support, then we could maybe bring those folks in for a meeting during a work session as well. I'm not doing this, I don't think it's not because of the committee. I just wanted to see if it'd be better to have that be done through council,
So
and that the residents have more visibility of it and can have some input to it as well.
So the plan was passed in September of 2020. Because of COVID, it initially started, and we've been making reports back through the Sustainability Committee. So I think a part of the problem is that people weren't understanding that it wasn't the Sustainability Committee that was doing all of the work. It was mostly, at least initially, was Don and Ralph working, because there are basically two parts. There's the part where the borough leads by example, and then there's the section that deals with community sustainability programs. So what we started off with was the leading by example. And so Wilson Engineering?
Yes.
Okay. Wilson Engineering came in and did two energy management studies that were paid for by DEP. One of them looked at how we were using energy within the borough and made some recommendations. And we're starting to implement those. The other part was to look at whether it was feasible for us to do solar energy for the borough. Those two reports are available for your review. The second part we didn't actually start until September, and that was the part of the plan that said we create an environmental, community environmental advisory board made up of experts in the area of sustainability to work with council representatives and representatives from the community. That particular, in discussions while I was still president, Don and I, looking at how other communities have set up these advisory boards, decided to have the county with Ray Stolinas, who's the director of the planning agency, Ilona Bowrick, who is with Penn State Sustainability, Pam Adams, who is already is with COG, who's done a similar sustainability board. So they have expertise and knowledge about the educational programs that are possible for the community, and they have access to the people who can teach these. And our focus is basically, what is it that you think we need here in the community? And we could have gone with it in two different ways. One of them was to just say, well, what would you like to do? And then try to find people who could provide those educational programs. The committee, after some discussion, felt it was better if we can say, well, here are the ideas that came from the residential representative and the business representative, and then send them back out to the technical people and say, well, I have so-and-so that can provide a program on rain barrels. I have another one who can provide it on how to install electric vehicle charging units in your home, or how can you make a sustainable garden? So those are the kinds of things that they're working on. Once we get that list, then the plan is to have a public hearing.
That's 3 minutes, so we're trying to keep things to
Okay.
3 minutes. So, you know, my thing with this, and I understand what you're saying, but couldn't we do that as a council, work for that, and then get that information to get the items that you're talking about through council instead of having a separate group doing this? My concern, and always been my concern with the Climate Action Act, is there's no money attached to it. So we don't know what things are gonna cost. So if we're gonna do things, if we have to have something done by 2025, and I don't have any idea what those things are at this point, because you'd have to go back and look at the plan, but to do that, you need to
So-
be working the plan and making suggestions. And that's where I thought council could interact with that, and then possibly use our contacts at the county to maybe bring in the folks that could help us answer
So,
some of the questions.
Can I respond to that? Okay. This group was basically told that we were not intending to spend any money at all. So every single one of these programs has to be free, and they've understood that from the very beginning. Let me finish. If we were to disband this group as you're recommending, I believe that will be blight is not the word. It would be basically saying you're not providing the services we want. And I'm not sure we could easily bring them back in again. I would rather continue this, and if you want to have, if you'd rather start off with a public hearing and then continue, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Well, if we don't disband it, then the least I want are minutes to the meetings. Because
Okay.
that's one thing the previous council was crazy about minutes, and this group, when we don't know what's going on, we don't know what's being presented, we don't know what's being, saying, yeah, we're gonna do this, and not have a say in it.
Okay.
We are the Borough Council, we have the right for a say, we have a right to look at it, and that's what we need to do.
Okay.
It's-
I think that's possible.
So do we have a right to say who's on the committee?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we did lose Mary,
Yes.
so I would say if there's council members interested, sure, Doug, and anyone,
Do we know how much staff time is used?
just me, really.
Well, you just use,
Yeah.
that's staff
How
time.
much time?
So, I'm not interested, but
Is there
I'm
anybody
sure
at the
somebody
table
else should
tonight interested?
volunteer.
You wanna think about it?
Just FYI, the meetings are once every 2 weeks from 3:30 to 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. The next one is this coming Friday.
It might be nice if we carve out 10 minutes at a work session and hit the highlights of the climate plan and the highlights of this board that has come up or developed.
Good idea.
I'm agreeable
Yeah.
with that.
And then you might have some volunteers.
So we'll move to another work session.
Yeah.
So each priority kind of changes with these work sessions, things are gonna, that list is gonna change.
We'll put them on the list. That's the idea, having a list.
Okay, well, thank you for the conversation on that. The next item I have is the agreement to the subordinate mortgage. Who's gonna explain that?
I'm going to try, and Don can chime in. Rodney Beard, attorney for the IDA, maybe at times for the council, but because he did a lot of work for the IDA, the Industrial Development Authority, we used Rodney, or agreed to use Rodney, to do the paperwork related to what turned in to be a loan from the borough to the Gamble Mill owners. The loan monies, $500,000, came to the borough from the state as a grant. So it's really not our money. It's not the local taxpayers' money per se. It was state monies sent to us as a grant with the understanding we'd turn around to make it a loan to the Gamble Mill owners, which has been done. The idea is they pay it back, it becomes a revolving loan fund for other business owners, property owners, to renovate their properties. That's the concept. We knew, and they knew, that they were getting their financing in order to do the renovations. They would come back at some point and do a refinance, and that's what this is about. they're refinancing their debt. And the bank basically wants to be, have a higher position on the debt positions than our money. The money that was a grant that became a loan. That's why it's called a subordinate mortgage. So in a nutshell, we are risking the possibility of not having a revolving loan fund someday, should something happen over there. And it's really basically what, I shouldn't say it's the total, we don't know the outcome, because if they would go into bankruptcy or default, you know, the bank's gonna sell the assets. They're gonna get their money first, and then if there's any remaining assets, then maybe it works it down to us, and we would sell something, and we would have some funds. That's what's at risk, not having funds by being lower on the list of debts. You know, a lower position on the debt list than the bank that's refinancing their debts. So in a nutshell, we're agreeing to be lower on the list if they would ever default. As long as they make their payments, there's no problem. You know, if they have problems financially and they stop making payments and the bank goes in and says, we're out of here, you know, we're gonna start selling assets, then they would get their money first, we would get our money later. So at risk, you know, would be our possibility of a revolving loan fund. Would you want to add anything, Don?
Yeah, just a couple things. As we were working with the Gamble Mill folks, when they were going through all this renovation, in our previous paperwork, council had already agreed. We already agreed to be subordinate, and we knew that they were going to be going out for a refinance after they had everything settled. It was our interest at the time that to make sure that the Gamble Mill was reestablished in some form or fashion. So you had a previous council that already voted to be subordinate. We're already subordinate. It's just that we may be subordinate now to 150,000, where we're going to be subordinate to maybe, we don't know, maybe it might be $1 million or so. But they've been paying on the loan. I mean, we do have income coming in, and you know, I don't know what to say other than that this is something that we've already agreed to it.
You have a
Okay,
question?
let me bring in the motion first that we go ahead and agree to agree to the subordinate mortgage. That would be the motion.
The revised.
The revised
Yeah.
mortgage. Is that what it is?
For discussion, I will make that motion.
I'll second that, Clayton.
Okay, so we have a proper motion and second. Now we can do discussion.
So, Don, are you saying that we're currently subordinate to 150,000?
I don't know the number, but I know it's less than what they're refinancing.
So what they're asking for us is to take a much greater risk by doing the second subordination?
Yes,
Okay.
that's in essence what we would be doing.
Okay,
And I would add to that, we knew that when we already agreed to it, when we did the paperwork the first time. We knew they were gonna refinance once they had everything settled.
You guys keep saying risk, but it was money that wasn't ours to begin with. That was money that
Yes.
was granted to
Yes.
us to give to them. And the
Yes.
idea,
Yes.
the original council, the idea was, let's rejuvenate
Yes.
a downtown business that we can all enjoy, and
That-
that goal has been reached.
That's
Yes.
exactly right,
Yeah.
Councilmember.
we're-
Now,
we're-
we would not
this
have
is
even,
you
we
know,
would not
keep
even
saying-
have
we keep saying
received
risk
that
like it's
grant.
somebody's 401K, but that's not really true.
No,
The
it's-
risk would be, oh, well, we got the Gamble Mill reestablished.
Yeah.
That grant,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have even got the grant. They were an anchor building. That was the main idea behind the grant. You had to have a building like that to even get it in the first place. So the fact that they got the money, they're paying it back is what Ralph said. This will benefit the borough in the long run. So the longer that it's going and going well and they're paying they're paying us back, we're building probably within another 2 years, we'll have I mean, we talk all the time in the borough about giving small grants to downtown businesses for facades. We'll have that enough money back in 2 years to begin to do that.
Okay.
So Eric, this is a grant that came, basically it's sort of like a historic preservation grant. And what it was designed to do is to give, as he said, $500,000 for 5 years to an anchor building. During those 5 years, we or they, or in combination, have to give reports on how the money is being used. If we get the $500,000 back after 5 years, then we can open it up to anybody we want. But if we
I think
don't,
we're going around, it's been discussed, Let's
Well-
move on with, I mean, honestly, Ralph covered that pretty well through when he started the discussion. Is there any other questions pertaining to that we haven't spoke about concerning this item? Okay, we'll move to approve the motion, so motion to approve, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I
One
I
nay.
don't want to take the risk.
Mr. Stevesi. Okay, then the next item is for the work session agenda for February 7th, and we've already decided we've got
Got a
enough to
couple
go.
items to start with.
We'll move that forward. But again, council, you have the ability to act and delete and add items to our goals in 2022
Yes, that list.
as we move along. So jot it down, maybe start your own list with using the 20. This is a full sheet of paper anyways, you can start a whole new page. Go from there.
Working on it.
I think that's all we got. So we're up to, we have public comment regarding items not on the agenda. Anything? Seeing none, we will move to adjournment. Do I have an adjournment?
There is an executive session.
Oh, yes, we are, after this meeting, we'll be moving to an executive session. And that'll be talking about real estate. So I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Doug Johnson, second.
Second, Dan?
Or Dan.
Dan?
We are adjourned at 9:27.